get some responses from people, and then you guys we'll have you guys start introducing yourselves.
It's giving me a countdown saying we'll be live in 4 minutes.
I see that we're live now.
Oh, really?
It says we're live now, so we should be good. So let's see. So if people in the chat, once people discover this and come in, if you can just let us know that we're all good, and that you can hear us. I'm pulling up the chat now, and you guys might want to also should be live on my channel, just so we can pick out questions that we find interesting.
Trying to organize my screen here.
Yep. I am as well. It's good to give people a minute or so to come in anyway.
Yeah, I see a lot of messages rolling in now.
That's good. Okay. All right. All right, I have it pulled up. Yes, looks like we have a few people coming in.
Still speaking Spanish.
All right, so they can say that they can hear us. Jake is speaking Spanish. I haven't heard that one before. All right, so why don't you guys introduce yourselves to my audience? And before you guys do, I'll just let the audience know just briefly, these are two extremely knowledgeable, experienced Pokemon collectors, sellers, investors, the whole thing. Flip cards, have businesses, also are big Pokemon lovers and have collections. And two of definitely the most knowledgeable guys in the hobby. People there are a lot of these types of guys. Both of them have YouTube channels, which they'll talk a little bit about, and are doing a podcast together, which I'm excited for you to tell them about. But yeah, these guys are qualified to give opinions on all things Pokemon market. So hopefully, if you guys have questions for them, questions for all of us that we can answer, this will be really a worthwhile discussion for everyone to hear. So if you guys can just start, whoever feels like going first and jumping in to talk about what you guys maybe have been working on together, what you guys do separately, talk a little bit about the YouTube channels.
You want to go first, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nick, old school Pokemon. I originally got back into the hobby. I got back into the hobby as a reseller before collector back in 2009. And I've been selling on eBay since then. I started collecting in 2016 and have just kind of been growing my eBay business, growing my personal collection since 2016. Nowadays, I'm probably most known for my No Damage Ninetales collection. That's my absolute favorite card right there. And I do have a YouTube channel, Old School Pokemon, if you do want to check that out. Me and Dan, Catch 'em All Collectibles, actually just recently started a podcast series, more or less devoted to like Pokemon business talk, buying and selling cards, making money on eBay and different selling platforms like that. So super excited to finally get that podcast rolling with Dan. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning that for a while, and we're definitely having a lot of fun with it. So hopefully you guys can check that out, and hopefully you enjoy it.
I enjoy it as a consumer. Definitely highly recommend it. Tons of insights. It's great to hear your perspectives on kind of a wide range of topics each week. So I've been just like my videos, they're quite long, and so I tend to, just as I imagine a lot of my audience does, kind of watch pieces of it or sometimes the whole part of it. But I think I've watched most of them, or if not all of it. So definitely
awesome.
So I'm Dan. I'm Gotta Catch 'em All on E4. You'll see next to my face here, Gotta Catch 'em All. I'm also Catch 'em All Collectibles on eBay and on YouTube. So my story of getting back into Pokemon was as a collector back in late 2014. I just set a certain amount of money devoted to the hobby, and I found the most efficient way to collect was to buy large collections, of which maybe I only wanted a couple pieces, and then flip out the rest and just build everything I own, everything you see on my eBay, on my Instagram. It's all built from that initial seed money. I loaned money to myself a couple times to jumpstart it a bit, but yeah, I guess Nick mentioned one of his big collections, and one of my big goals entering the hobby, one of my big accolades was, I think I completed it in 2017 or early 2018. I actually opened a booster box from every set, which you might cringe hearing that. I opened EX Deoxys, I opened Sky Ridge Aquapolis, actually opened 3 or 4 Aquapolis, but thankfully I was doing it when prices were relatively cheap. But they were still fairly expensive, and the EVs were not positive on a lot of them. So that was a really great way to jumpstart my collection and get a lot of pack fresh mint cards for my binders, and that's, I'm sure we'll get into more things down the line in this conversation, but I'm kind of going back to my roots and enjoying the binders a lot more, given all the price frenzies. And some people may recognize me that have been following Jake's channel for a while. I did do an interview with him September, right in the hype, right in the main mania.
Yeah, probably post Logan, so probably October,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah. And for those who have watched a lot of my videos, Dan's sort of advice there, what he did is exactly what I preach to people on this channel and what I did, which is buying big collections, keeping some of the stuff that you think is the most investable, the stuff to hold on to, also keeping the stuff that you want to collect and build your collection out of. Those are I think the most like financially prudent way of doing it, particularly I think now also because things are so expensive. Unless you have a huge amount of money, I think for most people who really want to own a lot of these cards, they have to figure out how to also, generate some income with this hobby or buy and sell and kind of trade up into some of those like more expensive cards. So generally on the channel, we just take questions from people. So I'm going to take a look. If you guys want to start asking your questions for these guys, let's see if anyone's asked any questions yet. So we've got You Say Booyah and Curdle, Lewis Collectibles. Nice to see all of you. Pokebarn and Swami. All right. So Blue Goose Collectibles says, you guys looking to pick up anything? So that might be for tonight for the PWCC auctions, or you could take it as like in general.
Personally, I didn't buy it from PWCC, but last month I found that I feel like we're nearing a place where some of these early WotC boxes are almost overcorrecting too low, and we're almost nearing a point of positive EV, or at least near break even. Years ago, I used to buy and crack and grade jungle and fossil boxes like crazy. I probably did a dozen of each. And so that's I picked up a fossil box last month, like I said. Tonight I am eyeing some of the Team Rocket boxes. I didn't have any luck with the fossil boxes last night, but that's what I've got my eye on for tonight. How about you, Nick?
I'm not eyeing anything tonight. Last night I was trying to go after, there was a PSA 9 no damage Ninetales. I was trying to go after that, hoping that I would win that. I ended up losing that by about $100. It went for 8,200 almost. But fortunately, right after that PWCC auction ended and I lost it, there there was 2 buy it now listings for a PSA 9 no damage Ninetales, and I picked the better of the 2, the one that looked better, and I offered that seller $8,000 for his copy, and he immediately accepted, which was awesome. So I didn't win the PWCC auction, but I ended up getting one, which was really cool. And then I also bought, it's not PWCC related, but Rusty TCA Gaming recently posted unlimited jungle booster packs with the Made in Belgium copyright. And I'm big into collecting art sets of booster packs. And I actually never knew that was a thing. So he posted that on Instagram, and I picked one of those up as well last night. So those are 2 of my exciting purchases.
Do you have any interest in grading booster packs, Nick, or do you like just collecting them ungraded?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the ungraded, because if I get into grading them, I'm super OCD when it comes to my own collection. So they'd all have to be the same grade.
All have to be 9s or all 10s.
I see. So I am looking at a couple cards tonight. I'm not going to say what. Definitely going to keep that private. Although people on this channel, I'm so public already with so many opinions that people can, I think, get a general sense of my feeling on the market and what I might be looking at. I will say that last night I did buy something. Once I do actually buy something, I feel comfortable talking about it. I bought the PSA 10 first edition Clefable from last night. I was telling these guys actually right before we got on. We were talking a little bit about the auctions. And my feeling on it, I got it for like 2,300. It was at 6,000 at the height. There are only 62 in the world. It's the I believe it's the lowest pop and still is the jungle card. There are a few jungle cards that are in that 60s range. I think we've got, just off the top of my head, and fill it in for me, but I think we've got Wigglytuff, Vaporeon, Snorlax, Kangaskhan, and Clefable, I think, is all in the 60s, and with Clefable being the lowest pop at 62. And my feeling on it is at that $2,300 price point, and with how many have come up on market, it's taken about 5 or 6 to come on market. And this is how my thought process works for the audience. It's taken about 5 or 6 to come up on the market for it to go down to that price, which does show that it is really slipping, and it easily could continue to slip. And so when you purchase something in this type of environment, you have to be aware that that falling knife, could keep falling after you if more people place these out there and panic. I do think that with that PWCC vault submission thing, I think a lot of people are, it's easier for a lot of people to sell through there right now. And I think there's a little bit of a panic. I hear a little bit of panic going on of people trying to sell. I do think with some of these lower prices we're finally seeing, that may actually calm down. And I actually think people may stop selling a little bit as much at these types of prices. And if we have sellers kind of say no and start to push their items higher again, I think you're going to see people actually gain confidence again in the cards and then start buying them at higher potentially again. I still think there's a lot of interest in money. And so there are going to be constantly these ups and downs forces affecting the market in the short term. I don't think we know. No one knows. You can't time something like this. But when we think of low pop cards like that, and why on this channel I've been talking so much about, for months and months and months, that if you want to buy set cards, you should be buying like Neos, Gold Stars, and E-Series as probably the most safe cards against that retrace. It goes back to those low pop ideas. And so those are the sets that really have not retraced. Whereas like Team Rocket, which is the set that I talked about, had the most cards out there, and we're seeing the most growth in terms of vintage, has had the biggest retrace on some of those cards. But the low pop ones from that set haven't retraced. So we're really seeing that pattern start to play out. And when you think about 5 or 6 cards have already, out of that 62, have already switched hands, how many more are going to be switching hands before no one now is willing to sell at that lower price? So that's the type of stuff that I look out for. And as far as long-term hold, Jungle's starting to become undervalued, like for me, or it's getting closer to that point. And to your point, Dan, about Foss, like Jungle has always been the much better purchase and the much better buy. Just seems to be quite a bit less out there. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And is certainly more difficult to grade in 10. And for someone who's a PSA, person goes after the PSAs, that the PSA 10 jungle hollows are much more intriguing as like a long-term investment potential. And it's the second set with the original 151 Pokemon. I think it's actually, when you look at those 60 pop cards and you compare those to like the first edition base, I think the first edition base is going to have more than we're going to see at the end of the day, potentially, than some of those really hard to grade jungle cards. And I think over time we might see a closing of gap in prices. What do you guys think about all of that? Definitely all speculation, but
I think for me personally, the Fossil is just a more nostalgic set. That's why I go after it. I do agree, though. I think there's more value in the jungle. As you said, some of the lower pop cards there, some of the bigger heavy hitters, I don't know where they've retraced to, but Snorlax, Vaporeon, I believe, were both over 10K.
yeah.
But as far as long term, you mentioned that
Vaporeon's gone to about 6,500, I think,
around
there. And I think Snorlax has not retraced very much. I'm not sure if you know, Nick, or if you've been
I don't think it hasn't gone down that much now.
Yeah, I think Snorlax has been pretty steady. Such a popular Pokemon, and also super hard to grade. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm primarily a 9 collector, so I don't keep up on these 10 prices generally. But yeah, long term, interesting thought whether jungle or base first, where they'll land on the pops. I think just given how many more boxes you see, I don't know if you were talking 2 years or 5 years. I'm thinking 10 or 20 though. I really think jungle is going to be higher across the board, just because the boxes are so much more plentiful. And as I said, I've been bidding on some jungle boxes. If I get one, I'm probably going to open it. That's one guy maybe getting 1 or 2 10s, but over the next 10 or 20 years, I just think there's thousands of these boxes left, if not several hundred or more, whereas base first is probably an order of magnitude less, and it's also just that much harder to open.
Yeah, no, base first is very hard to open. I don't think I could ever open even like a single pack of first edition base nowadays. But
what do you think, Nick, on that?
The jungle boxes I think they are getting a lot tougher to find when you compare jungle and fossil. I remember back in November, December, I forget who, but there was someone on Instagram. He was posting a story like every other day, looking to buy a jungle box, and there was like a month period where we didn't see a single first edition jungle box available, and you'd constantly see fossil boxes available. So jungle boxes are definitely a lot scarcer than comparing them to fossil boxes, at least, because I always compare those two sets. I think they're real comparable, being that they're like the second half of the 151.
Yep. I agree. They're and I do think it's interesting. Rafi, my partner on the channel, feels the same way as you, Dan, that he just likes fossil better. I like jungle better. But I think I'm in the minority. I think I'm definitely in the minority from most people I've talked to, but yeah, I like the Pokemon better in jungle. I just like always did. Although I do love the legend. I love the Articuno card. That's my favorite card from
That's
that
what
set.
I was going to say. The legendary birds do it for me.
So good.
That Dragonite too.
The Dragonite and Gengar.
But
but outside of those 5, I actually prefer, and you do have like probably some of the worst Pokemon in the jungle one in terms of like that achieve the hollow status within Pokemon.
Yeah.
Reach the status.
Even the commons and uncommons in jungle are a lot better than fossil. Fossil has no good non-hollers.
Yeah, you hit Cubone, Jigglypuff, the like second tier guys, and then obviously Pikachu and Eevee.
Yeah,
top tier.
Yeah, I like the Magmar and I like the Golem. The Golem Holo is probably the best one from Fossil. The Magmar, we already had a first appearance of it in base set. But yeah, most of them are not too interesting. And just also there's just so much more of it that even when we talk about investing or buying those jungle, first edition commons and uncommons and rares, I still think those have a much better chance of there never being enough 10s to go around. But it's certainly highly, speculative. There's and as Dan and I talked at length in our last conversation when Eevee was selling at PSA 10 first edition Eevee was selling at $1,000, and Dan and I were like, please don't be buying these. And we were having anxieties about selling them to people because we felt like it was unethical because people didn't know how many more were being graded and how many more Dan had of these types of things. But when we actually like do the math on like something like a Clefable, even if like 1,000 boxes are opened, 2,000 boxes are opened, it may not surpass. And no base set first edition boxes are open because of how difficult it is to get it in a 10 because of the low percentage. And you'd have to sit down and do the exact math, but and I have done it before, but that's where we get into that, like when something is so hard to get it, you have to open so much of it to close that gap. And then we get into these like conspiracy theories of is PSA grading harder, and is that going to contribute to it too? But interesting, definitely interesting conversation. Let's see. Swami says, was there something strange about the Shining Tyranitar Japanese PSA 9 sales going for more than unlimited 9 English? Am I missing something?
I didn't catch that, but I would definitely think there's something up with that. I think English, even unlimited, should definitely be worth more than Japanese.
Do you guys know the pull rate on the Shinings from Japanese?
I have no idea.
I actually
don't know much about Japanese set cards.
That's the one thing I think about in my head, because normally when we talk about the normal holos, it's like you get a holo every pack outside a base set. But with the Shinings, I'm actually not sure. I do think that they're actually really hard to pull. I actually have heard that they're harder to pull. So that's my only response, but I should know the answer to that and probably need to look that up. But and I may have like misheard by someone who didn't really know and was hyping up their cards. That's the danger of like of everyone sharing information all the time when none of us work for the Pokemon company is we can like further that misinformation. And it's difficult to test that theory out. You'd have to someone who has like 1,000 or a few thousand of those extremely expensive Japanese Neopacks to test it out now. But I agree, Nick, like just on the surface, unless there's something with that, which I think that there is something, that's an anomaly. Although I do see that I'm surprised at how high the Japanese cards are selling. I'm happy because I bought a bunch of them because they were a lot less expensive. I thought they were underpriced before, but I'm surprised at the gap. Yeah, I'm surprised at how the Japanese Japanese jungle PSA 10s or rocket cards are selling for many hundreds of dollars, and the 10s and 9s are only like a little bit higher in some cases on the English side. Just because they were so inexpensive before as compared to the English, and nobody wanted them. So it's interesting who's moving that, like who's changing the market, and why the newer people are either speculating on that or they're genuinely very interested. I don't know if you guys have any theories.
I have no theories at all, but I never opened any Japanese sealed product, but I do remember buying years ago a lot of, it was like somebody getting out of collecting must be. It was like 150 PSA 9 and 10 WotC Japanese cards. I think I had like 6 Roku, Neo 3, Neo 4, whatever it was, PSA 10s. I remember selling those things, doubling my money for what I paid on the lot, selling them for $50-$60 a piece, and they weren't selling quick. That's my only experience with like Japanese set cards. I've got dozens of them. I mean, not a ton, but dozens of them out at PSA right now, just because the prices seem to pop up out of nowhere. They caught me off guard because I was never looking.
Yeah, I'm
Do you
the same way there.
I was going to ask that. Do you deal in Japanese, Nick?
I don't do too much with Japanese, no. I did. I purchased a big VS series collection. It was like 2,000 cards back about 2 years ago.
That's awesome.
And I really
that's a good buy.
I graded a couple hundred of them, but I really wish I held on to more of them and graded more of them. Because back when I purchased it, it wasn't that worth it to grade them. The premium that you got grading them versus just selling them raw, it wasn't a huge difference. But today I just got that submission back, and the pricing on PSA 10 VS cards is ridiculous right now.
Yeah. They're such beautiful arts, you know. I mean, they're
absolutely.
They're so great. Like they definitely for me have some of the best, particularly non-hollow arts in the hobby. But yeah, you know, those were the PSA 10s were selling for $12, $15 outside of the, you know, I was buying them in like PWCC auctions outside of the more popular Pokemon, which were sort of $40 to $50. And then the Charizard was like $90 to $100. Yeah. These were for the non-hollows. The hollows were things like the you know, Karens like Tyranitar and the Umbreon were always selling for like a little bit more. And were always a little bit more desirable, but it's such a niche thing. You know, people didn't know about them. And I think it's so we have so many new people in the hobby that they're kind of going from one thing to the next. That kind of spikes. Then they move to like the next cool Japanese thing or the next. And what's cool is there's enough people in the hobby and enough money in the hobby right now that like all of these things are able to go up. And while we're seeing like some of this WotC vintage stuff, you know, retrace, we're seeing other Japanese things go up. We're seeing some modern go up. Some of it just that there's just so much interest and so much money still in the hobby. And I think we're going to see these up and down forces on different areas of the market. And what I would suggest is people don't panic, like fundamentals, right? Like things that people pop, you know, rarity, you know, and then on the demand side, things that mean something to people, that have some historical significance, that tell a story. Try not to get too caught up in the price movements. But it's tricky not to, and it feels terrible when you buy something and then it goes down a bunch. And for a lot of people, this is the first experience they're having with that gut check and that reality, because we were all feeling like geniuses and everything we bought just kept going up, you know. So it's healthy. It's healthy, that sort of thing. Let's see. And guys, definitely just keep bringing your questions in, and we'll try to get to a number of them. People are just asking about PWCC, what we have our eyes on. We talked a little bit about that. Derek Heat asks, your guys' favorite art/worst art cards?
That's a tough one.
That is tough.
That's very tough. There are a lot of Pokemon cards.
I feel like you've answered in this fashion, Jake, but you kind of, I feel like I've heard you say in the past that you just enjoy almost everything. I mean, I feel like I'm easy to please. As far as picking out an absolute favorite, it's really hard. I mean, it's more nostalgia than anything. So like some of those fossil ones, the Dragonite art I really like, base set. Almost anything in base set. I mean, any of the hollows, it's just not a great answer because it's too broad and vague. But I like the WotC stuff, and you get some people that are only modern or only WotC, and I like it all. I really love what they've done with the amazing rares, and I mean the gold stars are beautiful. Every era has something going on. Legend cards. When I first started opening some of those Heart Gold and Soul Silver boxes, I'm like, what is this? I wasn't a huge fan, but they've kind of grown on me. And there's just so much beauty throughout the whole hobby. And then as far as worse, I don't really, they don't come to mind. Nothing stands out as like maybe some of those weird Gen 5 through 8 ice cream Pokemon or garbage can Pokemon or whatever.
Our Pokemon were cool. These young Pokemon, these young people Pokemon are stupid.
Yeah.
How about you, Nick? Any
so I don't do too much with Japanese, like I said, but my absolute favorite artwork would have to be all the vending series and like the Masaki promos that go along with it. I love all that artwork, but my favorite out of that would have to be the Gengar Masaki promo.
That is a nice one.
That's an absolute beautiful card in my opinion. And then for my least favorite, probably have to be either the Muck or Dark Weezing. from Fossil or Team Rocket. I've seen way too many of those cards.
Yes, they are very common. Gosh, for me, let's do. I'm gonna pick 2 cards just from the same set. For wow, I've answered this question a lot, and I give different answers every time. But these are another 2 cards. One that I think is gorgeous. One that I think is pretty ugly. And there are very few cards that I think are actually really bad looking, and have the negative response to. But so let's pick cards from the 1997 Cardass. Do you guys have you guys seen those? So like the checklist cards, both those cards are amazing. I particularly like the checklist with the starters in their stage 1 form. And then the Eevee is terrible from that set. So like they did sort of like a callback to that Eevee. It's like this derpy, like eyes closed Eevee, like it's not a good looking Eevee in a weird pose. And like every other card from that set is like a killer. and then they took one of like the cutest like favorite Pokemon and they made it like not cute and just look weird in my opinion. But and then they kind of use the same style and idea a little bit in that Tag Team All-Stars Eevee. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That Japanese, like the full art alternative one that looks like ridiculous and weird.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, those are ugly. I don't like those. But outside of that, I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to Pokemon cards. I like shiny cardboard. I like it's part of why I collect a lot of things outside Pokemon too, because I'm just a fan of most of this stuff, and I love pop culture and all these like different worlds and collecting in all these worlds, and so I tend to not have too negative a reaction to most things. Let's see. Nick Hoover asks, what do you guys think of Platinum and Victor's secret rares that are reprints of WotC era cards?
You guys that's know? That's like the Scyther. I think there's a Hitmonchan.
Yeah.
Zapdos, Articuno, and Mulch. Or those are.
Those aren't the reprint arts.
No, those aren't reprints, but those are secret rares in one of those sets. I was actually just going through a lot that I bought. I think you're right. Like a mid-era lot. I think they're interesting. They're kind of just a different, refreshed art style. I mean, we've seen some of that with evolutions, and I'm kind of indifferent to that. It's not. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't love them. I don't hate them. They're just there, I guess.
I've never gotten into that kind of mid-era. I know WotC, EX series, and then XY going forward. That whole Diamond and Pearl, Platinum. I don't know much about that at all.
Yeah, it's a cool era with a lot of upside because we're having like Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, really Gen 4, Gen 5 collectors kind of coming into the hobby and having more money and being more interested. They're just smaller groups, I think overall. I have a similar take. Just kind of like they're fine. I like them better than the Evolutions reprints. I think that they're a little more interesting to me than the Evolutions reprints. Mm-hmm. But nothing that I was super excited. I think I owned one of each. Any card that I like picked up just one of in that era was something that I was like not particularly interested in. So, there were they just would come up for $9 in PSA 9, and I knew the difficulty to pull, and I was like, at $9, I can sell this for $25. If Pokemon lasts, this card will easily be worth $25 to $50. Little did I know, a year later after I was buying those, they'd be like, $200, $300 each. With the level X's. So, that's my feeling on them. I don't think that they really stand out that much. I don't think that they have much of an identity. I think the one plus for Evolutions is it's a whole set. It's a whole reprint set. I think those cards are a little more like random, and which Pokemon they chose seemed kind of it doesn't tell a story for me, that type of thing. But that set, Supreme Victors, is a great set. Definitely one of the best sets from that era. Has so much in it, including, I believe, the Moltres Zapdos, those secret rare cards, which are cool cards.
Yeah.
And has a lot of is, and it's good stuff. All right. Vincent LG says, what do you guys think of all the German cards at PWCC? I noticed this.
I don't know who graded all those German cards. That must have cost a fortune though to grade all those.
That's what I was thinking in my head. It was like tallying up, like, ugh, why, man? Like
the sad thing is, the market didn't punish that person.
I know.
Like that person should have lost a lot of money. Bad market. You guys are not good.
Yep.
I can't believe that many cards were graded 1, because that was a decent risk. I don't know what they paid exactly at BGS, but they went for shocking amounts to me.
They were bad grades. They were like 8s.
Yeah.
Like energies and stuff
8.5s, right? Tons of 8s and 8.5s. For BGS, and BGS 8.5 can be like garbage. Like you can have like significant widening issues.
I think that they're done. I was in a chat last night during the PWCC, and somebody who consults with PWCC was present, and I believe they're done for now, at least. I think PWCC really needs to restrict, and I can't believe what they did with that 3 free promo. I think they need to make the sub $100 or $200 cards need to be like prohibitively 50% fee or something to sell them. They need to value their time more, in my opinion.
Do you remember when PSA had the $7.50 like as the Mania was starting? This was pre Logan Paul part of the Mania, but there's already a bunch of Mania. Yeah. And instead of responding to the Mania, like, okay, we're getting so much more here, maybe we should raise prices, or at least not lower prices. They gave the lowest Pokemon thing that I had seen in over a year. And I just sent out every single thing I had in my collection at $7.50 a card, because I was like, this is the last time I'm ever gonna get $7.50 probably.
Yeah, I have 800 cards still there from that.
Yeah, I couldn't understand. It's like, don't you guys realize how many cards you're about to get? Like everyone, and to me, that was the weirdness of like, are they aware of the markets, or do they just kind of just tunnel vision on their jobs and just go through, rather than checking the prices or being aware of it? It was odd.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Just think of the sheer absurdity of it. Like at some point tomorrow, some people from PSA are going to go in and they're going to spend their first 2 hours of the day. Hypothetically, they're going to spend their first 2 hours of the day grading my fossil and jungle commons and uncommons for $7.50 each. And then after break, their time is magically going to be worth $300 for each card, because that's all they're accepting. I mean, that's beyond absurd.
I think they strategically offered that $7.50 Pokemania special, because if you remember, it was right around the time that CGC announced they were going to start grading Pokemon cards, and so I think PSA did that special.
Was that true?
So people would submit to PSA versus CGC.
One bit of speculation that I heard too that I think might be valid is this was around the time that they knew that they were being bought. So I think they were trying to like pump their backlog to just say, hey, we've got this much guaranteed revenue coming for the next fiscal year. And they pumped their backlog with bulk so that they could spend the majority of their time doing $25, $50 per card grading and really pump that like fourth quarter revenue for their purchase, for their sale.
I believe it was May, right? It was May that the deal was, I think.
Yep.
And I think CGC came out in July.
Yeah, but they announced it a month or two previously.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, I take it back then. I shouldn't be so hard on. Then it was smart. I just remember thinking like, you guys don't need to do this. Everyone and their mother is sending their cards to you. You're literally just losing like $1.50, $2.50 on every single thing. It's
Well, think about this too, like how absurd that is. what's today? It's almost May.
Mm.
You could send for $10 a card 3 months ago, end of February. I mean, almost more absurd than $7.50 last May is the fact that you could send for $9.99 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Because that was when their backlog was
Yeah.
how many million? I don't know.
And to think the premiums that these things got then, when this case is worth $50, like how is that going to affect the premiums that these things might be able to get? You know, I mean, it that's what makes me think of like why those maybe German cars are selling, because it's going to cost the person $35 or $40 or whatever it is right now at BGS. They're going to have to wait a year. So if I just pay $50 because I want this, and maybe I'm a German collector and I'm trying to complete a set, it's like I'm trying to figure out, you know, what's happening there. But yeah, interesting stuff with those German cards. I was watching it with amazement, and going for prices that I thought English should be going for, a lot of them. Like some of the nines were hitting like 150, 200, 250. And I'm remembering when the starters were going all day, 80, 90, $100, you know, not a year and a half ago. And I'm thinking like, so people are paying $300 for the starters in German now in a BGS 9, not a PSA 9, which is generally considered stronger than a BGS 9. Interesting. Okay. All right. I see you, German. Well done. Another thing could be that, and I do know this, that it's very, very popular in Europe right now, very popular in Germany. And part of it could be that there just isn't a lot of it graded. There isn't a lot out there, and there are collectors who just really want it and are willing to pay some of those prices. And over time, we may see more graded. I do think it'll be interesting to see if it becomes more of a global thing, and you start to see these sort of lots of different cards from around the world, and sort of different bidders bidding on the different cards, and those developing their own prices in their own market. We'll see how it all goes. Andrew M says, Jake, if you could go back in time and keep one vintage box for yourself to open only, which would you choose? We can definitely all answer this. One vintage box for me to open, which would I choose? Either Neo Genesis for me, or Versus Series.
Ooh, that's a good choice right there.
Yeah, I love those Versus Series boxes. They're fun.
I would have to go with Shadowless base set, just because that's my favorite set of all time.
I don't know, the way the question was asked, maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but was it supposed to be one that we have had that we opened, if you could keep one sealed? Or, I mean, the easy answer is base first. When I said that I opened a box from every set, base first is the only set that I didn't get. So WotC, I didn't do unlimited versions of all of them. I just did the first edition. I did do Shadowless, but I did not do base first. I feel like the last one to go for 10K or less was the Collector's Cash, and Rusty ended up buying it. And I had that thing in my cart. I looked at it for weeks and I just didn't pull the trigger. I would have immediately opened it as he did. But buying that and then keeping it sealed was easily that would have been the best one to do. Kind of a cheating answer, but I really liked like Aquapolis. I was lucky enough to open a few of those, and I really enjoyed that set. Really liked the crystals. Well, I guess Lugia's Strong, Nido King, and Kingdra are a pretty big drop off from there, but I really like the E series.
Yeah. Let's see. Kind of an interesting question here. So Josh Harris says, how would I start to build a market for a card game that has no cards graded ever? The community is mostly players with a lot of silent collectors like myself. This is a dead TCG out of print.
That's an interesting one.
grade 1,000 of them and
Yep.
list up on eBay and get the word out. I mean,
yeah. So if you really want to be like savvy and kind of a prick, what you really want to do is you want to get all of the sealed product, or as much of the sealed product first, because the sealed product is where the mint stuff is going to be. And then you want to start grading some of the stuff that's already out there to start to build up that market for graded cards. Then you want to think about maybe opening, if there becomes a market, then you want to think about maybe opening some of it, grading that. Then you start to put out those 10s. But it's actually really smart to start not with those most pristine cards, because it actually makes the pop reports look lower to see that they're only like 8s and 9s and no 10s. This is what's happening in like DBZ score. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into, depending on how much of a prick you want to be and how manipulative you want to be, versus a different type of strategy where I would just be like, talk about how fun it is with people, encourage people to try it, start a channel about it, share your collection journey, and people will love it for that. But definitely the grading is key right now. So many people, when people see something graded, it legitimizes it. And that, I mean, in Pokemon, we've seen that, like with those playing cards that are literal playing cards from that have had zero value or interest at all. And then as soon as BGS threw it in a case, and unless Leaf talked about it and some other influencers talked about it, suddenly people are making tens of thousands of dollars on those. And I think that they're cool cards, so I'm not hating on it, but it shows how a market is built. That's a perfect example of how markets get built around something where there is no market before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would literally copy that.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
what people
parallel.
did, they bought a bunch of the sealed product. They bought a bunch of those packs, started grading those packs, started getting it out to influencers talking about it, and they've made a fortune. What do you think, Nick?
I was thinking about, I got a funny story about back in the day with Pokemon. Kind of talking about grading the cards. So back in, I found out about PSA back in 2010, 2011. And I graded 8 unlimited base set Machamp cards with PSA. And when I got that submission back, I got an eBay message from eBirdman, Ed, and he was furious at me for grading all 8 of those cards at once, because I graded like there was only like 80 copies in the pop report at the time. So I essentially graded like 10% of the pop report, and he was absolutely furious at me, because he was saying how Gary and him had been trying to establish this new graded card market, and people seeing this massive influx of graded cards was going to hurt the market. So that'd be one thing I would add, is to just grade the cards slowly to kind of promote an artificial scarcity, I guess.
The reason I've invested and gotten so interested in a hobby like DBZ Score versus something like Pokemon, and the reason these other hobbies are so underestimated, is because people don't realize that we had marketers and people who were really savvy businessmen build the Pokemon market and build the interest in Pokemon cards and do tactical, intentional things like that. And these other markets don't have that. Like I've been engaging in them, and it's more just like hardcore people who like love it, but don't necessarily think of it as a market where they're going to like buy and sell them. There's some of those people, but much, much less. And they're not the biggest voices with big YouTube channels and presences and big eBay stores. And so that's part of why some of these dead CCGs, like the whole argument that a dead CCG can't be extremely expensive is absolute nonsense. It falls apart immediately. It makes no sense. What's important is that the IP or the thing that it is resonates with people, and it's going to resonate with people over time. Mm-hmm. And then rarity. You don't have to keep creating new cards that remind you of that, as long as there are new anime shows, there are new TV shows, there are new movies, there are whatever, and we see that in the modern comics. People buying modern comics the people buying those modern comics are not the same people paying, in a lot of cases, $2 million, $3 million for the golden age stuff. And so that's why I was talking about on this channel about buying a lot of that stuff when the surge was happening, and why I didn't buy Pokemon for basically 5 months and I moved to those things, is because applying those value principles and fundamentals and seeing that Pokemon market was really intentionally by these guys, and then was being kind of pushed, and there was a lot of irrational exuberance in some of these other great IPs and equally popular hobbies, or not equally popular, but somewhat popular hobbies, were being unnoticed. And now we've seen too much of a correction in some of those hobbies, like Marvel cards, and some of these things have, skyrocketed too much. And we're seeing actually retraces I'm seeing in some of those hobbies too. So, but it's a great question. I think that I wouldn't be afraid to, at the end of the day, it's trust the fundamentals, trust that, don't trust what someone's like hyping you up to do and telling you what should be in demand and what shouldn't be in demand, without giving arguments, And then there are a lot of people I've seen in Pokemon who just tell people only buy Pokemon cards. And it's just, to me, transparent that they just don't want any money leaving the hobby or going into any of these other hobbies, because they realize that in a lot of ways it's just like crypto and like anything, the only way these cards go up in price is if more people want them and more people bring more money into the hobby. And
exactly.
And so there's this feeling of like any dollar that goes outside of this hobby is one less dollar in my pocket, that I get from these guys. So don't be manipulated by those people. Don't be aware. Purchase what you think is what you want and what you value, whether it's in Pokemon or not.
And that's the stuff that I've done the best with, is stuff that I actually enjoy. That's the stuff that I've done the best with in terms of like an investment. Anything that I purchase as an investment has done worse than stuff that I actually truly enjoy collecting.
Yeah, I mean, Versus Series, Top Soon, and Cardass were perfect examples of it for me. Those were all sets that none of the people who established this hobby ever talked about or ever tried to bring any value into. I looked at them and I said, these are epic and amazing and predate, right? Some of these things predate anything. These are like, and they're rare and they're really hard to grade and they're flimsy. Like they have all these amazing fundamentals. And for me, that piece that was missing was no one built that market and built the confidence in the market. And then you have someone like Jeremy, Padawar, I think is his name, with a big following, who says, it's okay, guys, you can buy these things. They're cool and they're rare. And then all of a sudden everyone feels comfortable buying it. Right. And so you have to be careful because it can go too extreme. Right. But those are just lessons, and you're going to see that over and over again in whatever you guys invest in, whether it's collectibles or something else. Don't follow the herd when the herd's not making any sense.
Nope.
Yeah. Don't follow them off a cliff.
Yeah. Okay. So I see we have about 136 watching. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Just to reset it a little bit. If you can take a second to like the video, we would appreciate it here. Go subscribe to these guys' channels. I'm going to link it. I'll link it below, and ask us your questions. We're going through the questions one at a time. And we'll try to get to yours. All right. Mitch says, hey guys, what does everyone think about the PSA 10 first edition Zard that sold last night on PWCC? Despite the low $10 price in today's market, the card looked pretty weak and in my opinion was still overpriced.
Absolutely. That's I don't know if either of you, well, I know Dan goes on Facebook, but I don't know if you're on Facebook, Jake, but that's been a hot topic today. Everyone thinks the bubble burst for Pokemon because of that 250,000 sale, but that was 100% someone paying 220,000 over what that card should have sold for, because in my opinion that is absolutely a PSA 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think there's a funny thing that goes on. People are immediate to extrapolate to a new all-time high. This is the new price. And then when a liquid non-fungible item sells at a slightly lower price afterwards, it's like we draw straight lines between the points as if it's moving up and down. It's a very, like I said, very illiquid, non-fungible item.
Yeah.
Non-fungible meaning there's good memes out there of people saying buy the card, not the grade. And then when the market buys the card, not the grade, surprise Pikachu face. I mean, it is what it is. Take that card raw. What's it going to sell for? I mean,
and so my whole thesis on this channel from the beginning was talking about that these cards can sell for any price that people agree upon. That's what we're dealing with here. But how the market builds to that point is going to decide the sustainability. And so these are signs that this market's completely is still very unstable. The fact that people react this way when things go up and down shows you how insecure and the lack of confidence they have in their purchases, and that they're just purchasing things based on what other people are doing. It's a lack of confidence in their own investing or their own buying for their collection. And so the more you see of that, whether it goes up and people, freak out, or it goes down and people freak out, the more the market is unstable. And now that doesn't mean unstable down, it just means unstable. So unstable means we can see exponential, crazy, exuberant growth, and you can also see panic selling and things going way down. And it's the same thing that happens in every market. So that's what's happening. We're getting these pressures up and down. There was already a very large correction that happened about 3 months ago on most vintage items that then actually it recovered a little bit. And we call this a bull trap often, and what that means is people who were sort of waiting and really wanted to buy at the height and still had that exact irrational exuberance type of feeling, saw it come down a little bit and then got really excited and bought it back up. And this type of stuff happens in markets all the time. But the broader community or group still had fear. And so as more and more, there was more people fearful than there were greedy at that point, we could say. And because of that, eventually when the greedy people ran out, the fearful people took over. And now the fearful people are driving the price down, both the fearful sellers and the fearful buyers. And so where are the confident buyers and the confident sellers going to come in? Now it's a battle between the confident sellers who believe in their items and refuse to sell lower, and the confident buyers who believe that the price is good enough at wherever it is to start buying, and that it will come back up or sustain. And that's the battle that we're gonna see where it ends up. And it's why pop reports and rarity and who owns the card is so important. If the card is owned by longer term collectors who have been here for a long time and have more faith in the hobby, potentially, it's less likely to be panic sold. If it was bought by a big influencer this year who spent lots and lots of money and now is, leaving the hobby quickly, these types of movements, those are the types of items that I would be careful with. And the items that are in massive amounts of people's closets around the United States, and massive amount of people's closets who are really just flippers and resellers and just holding these things trying to make a profit. So I don't know if you guys agree with that or what you guys think about that, or if that's how you view it, but.
Yeah, I think you covered it really well.
So it's I don't know if you guys saw my 5 mistakes video, but the first mistake I talked about is this exact thing about overreacting to single price points and then calling the whole hobby a bubble or the whole hobby, right? It's like in the same time period, there have been cards that have been moving up. There have been Worlds promos, have gone up a lot in the last few months. And I'm sure you've been aware of that, Dan, as someone who also has a bunch of them.
Yeah, I have a lot.
They've disappeared
in PSA's backlog, but I actually do have a couple good ones on the way back right now in the mail. Yeah.
And those have really been disappearing from the market. There was a time when you could buy most years in most levels. Most of them are now gone from eBay. So while we're seeing lots of people listing these set cards, we're seeing these cards not being listed, which is going to create that desire and that want. And it's just about people knowing about them. Then it becomes that and seeing the value in the history. If you don't like them like I like them, don't buy. You never should buy them, and nobody should buy them. They should be worthless. I'm the only person who should own them if I'm the only one who likes them. But if a lot of people agree with that history and they love the story and they connect with the cards just like I do, I'm love those things. They were just primed for this type of thing. And as the higher echelon trophies disappear, those will be the only ones that are realistic for people in the thousands to get if that happens.
I'll
but
be
still at the same rarity level.
I'll be curious to know when they do have the next Worlds event.
Yeah.
What's the pricing on those Worlds promos going to be?
Yeah.
Even the staff promos, because I know I picked my 2019 copy up for $50 or $60.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not gonna happen at the next Worlds event.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought, because there's kind of like even last year. I mean, I only went to 2 Worlds, 2018 and 2019, but I was buying packs of the festivals, the one with the English, Japanese, and every other language, 80 to 100 a piece. And I was buying staffs, like Nick said, 50 to a little over 100 a piece. Those were like generally accepted prices. You could walk up to a player and, hey, can I buy all your buddies packs for $100 a piece? And I'm really interested to see how that changes moving forward too. And then, I mean, getting into the higher tier, the full art Pikachus. I mean, I purchased one with cash down in Washington, D.C. from the winner a couple hours after it was awarded. And I wouldn't even feel comfortable going with the amount of cash it would take to get future ones, I think. I don't know. That's really, really interesting.
For sure. Yeah. And at that time, those were really reasonable prices, because if you got a 10, which was very hard to get, depending on the year, obviously, like there's some years where it's like notorious for off centering or other sorts of issues. You would make good money, but you would expect a 9, and the 9s might have sold for like $125 to $150, and you were paying $50 to $100 for the card. That's a very reasonable turn for waiting and for going through that. So we're going to see if the price reflects it now, where there's still that similar type of margin. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Josh Harris has a super chat. Thank you so much, Josh. And Josh says, thanks for answering my question, guys. And thanks for this live stream tonight. You were all great and fun to hang out with. Appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for hanging out always. All right. And if you guys can let us know in the chat and have a conversation, are you guys buying anything? We are not actually showing the card sales. I am aware of my things in the background as we're talking. I assume a lot of people in the chat are doing the same thing.
Just since we're talking about it, I think the key piece of the night, the Rayquaza Gold Star 10, is actually 20 seconds left.
Okay.
It's at 40.3. So since we're talking about it, I figured I'll give you a live data point.
That's a YouTuber move right there, being aware of what's important.
Still at 40.3 with 5 seconds left.
It's going to go over 45.
Any snipes? It went up 1 bit increment, 40.4.
Wow.
So somebody did snipe it in the last 2 seconds, but it only went up 1 increment.
Wow.
That's surprising. I thought that would go higher.
The bubble popped. It's over, guys.
Fire sale everything.
I don't even know what was the last data point for that.
I was going to ask you guys the same thing.
Yeah, I don't track 10s really.
What did it just sell for? I'm sorry.
40.4. I think that's higher than the last one, but I'm not even positive.
Yeah, I was going to throw something out that was probably wrong, so I just will keep it to myself and not spread misinformation. Yeah, so our analysis is, if it went up, then we think great. If it went down, boo. You guys
just said 40.3 was the last point someone said, so it's up by $100.
Okay.
Oh, I guess that's not bad then.
Yeah, so
that's good.
I'm seeing that mostly, like, just as I was saying before, it's the lower pop, the gold stars, the E series, they're stickier. Some are even going up right now. It just shows that there's still a lot of money and interest and engagement in the hobby, and people still have confidence, but it's certain cards that are getting that. And goes to what we were talking about earlier, that I actually think that there's going to come a point, and I've already bought a card, but where some of these original WotC set cards, quite a few, it just becomes, it's original 151. These cards are amazing. It's like, and I think people also are getting a bit burned out on them and a bit bored and are excited by these other things, but they will circle back around to their childhood cards. So it's always kind of being ahead of where the curve is and trying to be, at least.
Mm-hmm.
All right. One thing on that Charizard question we got before, what do you guys think? You think that where's the Charizard going to be in a year? This whole like debate where I hear people just throw out, it's definitely going to be $1 million in a year. Like this ridiculousness. What do you guys think of the whole debate?
I actually just watched that video earlier of the 2-part video of the case sale, and talk like that is just absurd to me. I mean, it's not public what they sold it for, but it's a fair assumption that it's 2 to 3 million, I would say. I mean, 2 million would be a little over 300,000 a box, and then 3 million would be 500,000 a box, right? It's a big range, but it probably fell in there. And for the guy to so confidently say $10 million case, $8 to $10 million case within 5 years, I mean, that was crazy to me, irresponsible and just wrong in every way. And then say it's right. It's like, well, why didn't you guys hold it yourself and sell it to him in 5 years for?
It was Guru. It was Collectibles Guru all over again, and yet people didn't have the same reaction, which was interesting.
I mean, if you can give a 4x guarantee in a 5-year period, I mean, this past year we've seen 10x in the span of a year, so it's not that it's completely unreasonable. I mean, you could say that this thing could be 10 million in 5 years, and that would be fine. I mean, for this reason, all the money that's entered the hobby, all the inflation, all this and that. I mean, you could put logical points as to why it could get there, but to guarantee it, same thing with the Charizard at $1 million. Will it surprise me if one goes for $1 million in 5 years? Mildly surprised, but not completely out of the realm of possibility. A LeBron rookie BGS 9 just sold for $5.2 million. Why not? I love Pokemon. Maybe Bezos and Warren Buffett's grandchildren do, and they'll be buying a bunch of them. Who knows?
Yes, you and I see things exactly alike on that. What do you think, Nick?
I think it could go down a little bit. I don't think it'll go down too much. I can see it hovering around that 300,000 price range.
Yeah.
But I think that's about as far down as it'll go. I don't think we'll see $1 million anytime soon. Even going out 5 years, I can't see that.
I think a lot of cards that the sports flippers went after, including that card, are the cards that are at most risk in general, and are the cards we're seeing the retraces across the board. I think how that card stands out, though, is it's so valuable and it's so well known, and it's the key set card and piece in the hobby that it's just not going to behave like those other ones. And there are only 100. And so I don't know what it's going to do. Not that we know what any card is going to do, but I I wouldn't even put odds. I could see a lot of different scenarios on it. It would surprise me if it retraced as much as these other things. It would, if that has a 60% retrace or 70% retrace, it would surprise me. It would really mean that the top end of the hobby has really disappeared. We have a lot of these very rich celebrity types now in the hobby and their friends, and it would mean that that most of them disappeared, because a lot of those Charizards have already come out of collections now. The people who really wanted to sell, and where that was super life-changing money, I think most of those people have probably already sold. So there just isn't also as much incentive to sell. There was so much incentive to sell that Charizard for most people who owned that Charizard, because most people who own that Charizard bought it at $700 to $10,000, probably somewhere in that window. And this is life-changing money that if you pass up on a gamble, yikes, right? But I think for most of the people who probably still own it, it's not as life-changing. And so it goes back to that thing we talk about thinking about who owns it and what market forces is going to pull it out of their collection and that sort of thing. And I think even if a lot of the hobby takes a big hit, they may never sell. And if you really want that card, you may have to pay that higher price. But what we could see is that increased illiquidity, right? Where it's just not a liquid. People aren't, there was a time when our friends who had those PSA 10 Charizards were getting knocks on, were being reached out by tons of people all the time wanting to buy it. We're not in that period. There isn't the same sort of I have to buy, it's going to go up another 100,000 as soon as Logan Paul releases his next thing type feeling. Yeah. Oh, I lost the, I'm also keeping an eye on some auctions. Okay, I'm a YouTuber. Okay, focus. Okay, here's the chat. I found it. I'm gonna have you guys answer it so I can focus for a minute on what I'm doing. Do you think PSA will always be the standard, or given the insane demand for grading, do you think the market for grading may expand?
I think they're always going to be the standard. I think they've built that foundation. I think it's too late in the game for a new company to come in and take over their position. I do think CGC will come close. I think CGC will become what BGS is right now in terms of like PSA's number one, BGC's number two. I think CGC will eventually take over for BGS, but I can't see them ever taking over for PSA. I think too many people have built their collections with PSA and built PSA sets. I don't think it'll ever happen.
Sorry, I'm watching a card in the final 10 seconds.
This is the time of the night where we might go more to chill mode, where each of us checks on a card quickly.
So I didn't buy it, but a Mysterious Pearl PSA 10 did just sell for 15.1 thousand. I have one in the vault that I sent there and may sell down the line. But to get back to the question, yeah, I think PSA has just so much. I mean, they've been grading. Gary sent those CD promos 20 years ago, right? And looks like you just missed something, Jake.
Yep. Bunch of snipes right at the end.
But yeah,
wanted that quarterfinalist Worlds promo from that 2009.
I didn't even see it.
Yeah, 2009 quarterfinalist.
What'd it go for?
Let's see. It went for like 2,900, including shipping. So, yeah, that card was. I think I bought it at around 800 6 months ago, something like that. I actually bought a 10 for 800.
Nice.
Or maybe yeah. So that, and that was during like the height. It was the type of thing where, I'm sorry I interrupt your answer, but it was like this is what I'm trying to preach is like, now this may not be sustainable. These may retrace to, right? The market's crazy. But like it's the idea behind it of where all the attention isn't probably where you should be looking. You should do research and find the things that have great fundamentals, that have great interests where there are so few of them. But I think it's just the beginning for these myself, but that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So
I wish I hadn't talked so much about them because I still want to buy like 50 or 60 more. Shooting myself in the foot, but I can't help but talk about. It's a problem with having a channel. You can't help but like what your passion.
Yeah. So I think PSA just has so much history, so much market share. I mean, I don't know. We're over 1 million cards graded. I think someone's been mentioning kind of tracking one of the pop tracking websites. I do think that CGC, like Nick said, will kind of become the second runner to PSA. I know I favor them over BGS. The label gets a lot of hate. I don't think the red label of PSA is a thing of beauty. I have no problem as a person who buys the card, not the grading company. I have a lot of CGC cards in my personal collection. If I'm looking at a card that's $1,000 to $10,000 range, somewhere in there, I'd much rather pay CGC $50 or $100, get it back within a few weeks, than pay PSA $300 for the same service. And I really do like the subgrade thing, but I think this conversation's happened so many times. I've heard you talk about it, Jake, so many other YouTubers. There's a big thing with the 10. PSA 10 is like a clean, round, perfect number, right? 10 out of 10. And with CGC, I'm getting so many 9.5s on cards that I'm fairly confident would get 10 at PSA. So you're just not going to get just like the psychology of it or whatever. You're not going to get a lot of people willing to start building 9.5 collections that own a ton of PSA 10s.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've given my answer enough on it, but it's great to hear your guys' perspectives, which I think is the added value. I think my audience is, as you were saying, has heard me talk about that so much. And I agree with both of basically everything you guys said. I might have missed like 10 seconds of your answer, Nick, just because I was like desperately trying to win that card, but the rest I heard was excellent. I'm so bummed I didn't win that. Oh no. I'm actually not. I'm happy that it went for so much, and it's great that those are finally getting their due, in my opinion. And I wasn't anywhere close. I think I put in like 1650 was sort of my max. So, which to me is like a steal still at that price. But when we're talking about 2800, you're starting to get into like that is a lot of money for a Pokemon card. And
oh yeah, definitely.
But who knows when that card will come up again? A specific quarterfinalist, you know, they're probably only a few of those graded. How often do you interesting? Yeah, while I have you here, Dan, or with the audience, how often do you see? Because I do see a number of like top 32s and staffs in particular, and a number of top 16s, but I don't see the quarterfinalists in the wild, like hardly ever. I know you've had more luck, I think, in terms of tracking these things down. And I know you like scour Facebook and you're like on it with what you're doing. But what's your impression of? We know we have a basic rundown somewhat of the numbers, which you can obviously figure out by thinking about how many would have won each one. Although it's difficult, obviously, because there are 6 different competition. You know, there are 6 different categories, and then also each year we don't know exactly how many were given out to each people, and we don't know did the finalists get everyone, you know, of the lower ones too. We know that they did for the Champions Festival cards. We don't know about it for all of the older years. 2004 they didn't, which is part of why it's impossible to find those, all that stuff. But in terms of what you actually see out in the wild, because I think a key part of this is the higher people get, I also bet the less likely they're going to sell, because the less likely they're ever going to place that again, the less likely they're ever going to get that card, and the more important it is going to be the player. And that's something that I have been kind of keeping to myself, but I think we could talk about it and share it tonight.
Yeah, so these cards are quite scarce, as you said. I think I probably have more festivals specifically. I do have a handful of beaches, not a ton, but I probably have more of those in the backlog than 99.9% of people. Not that I have absurd amounts, but one of my big goals that I completed early this year, or late last year, was a 1 through 4 full art Pikachu set. So every time except for one that I bought one of those Pikachus, so 1st through 4th, I actually got all the festivals that came with it. Mm-hmm. So most times I think I have a 2014, 2 2014s, 2016, 2019 was the one I bought in person. Most of those were the years where they got 2 of their placement. So when I bought like a number 4, it came with 2 of the semifinalists, and then 1 quarter, 1 top 16, 1 top 32. Mm-hmm. But as you said, like aside from getting the Pikachus and getting the whole run of them, I've not seen like too many top 32s, top 16s, quarterfinals. I've not seen too many of those like on their own. Yeah. I bought a couple times, but like
it seems like if they escape from Worlds, and let me know what you think, Nick. Escape from Worlds, it's there aren't a ton of them that come out. It's sort of like there were enough people trying to buy them there that most of the ones that were able to be pried out did. Although I do wonder with the higher prices now, and I do know we're hearing it's this life-changing money thing. It's like when something becomes life-changing money, there's just so much more incentive to sell that trophy card that means so much to you, that sort of prize. And I know we've seen that with some of these like Pikachu trophies, you know, a few of these thrown up here and there from people. But what do you think, Nick, in terms of what you've seen? I know you've been to Worlds and around that, right?
I thought it was funny with Dan, because I remember when you bought your 2019 trophy. I thought it was funny with you. The person that you bought yours from actually didn't seem to care about the card. He was all about the big Pikachu trophy.
Sure.
Yep.
But in terms of like the top 16, top 32 cards and all that. I'm having a tough enough time finding the staff cards, so anything higher than that right now is near impossible to find.
Yeah. And, there is that saying that definitely goes around in all of our circles about how like a lot of players don't collect. And so the players just didn't have interest in the cards. The cards didn't connect with them, but the trophy did. And the memory of it was actually the most important thing. And that's why they were willing to sell the stuff, because they don't have that like collector addiction gene that all of us have necessarily. So they don't need things, right? They're more in it for the experience, which I think is interesting. But I don't know how true that is. Talking to someone like Joe from OmniPoke to get like insight on, do you guys know him?
Yeah.
Joe.
I heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, just like his insight as a player and as friends with a lot of those players and as a commentator at these events, sort of, yeah. And that's his take as well. Although it's amazing to me that some of these guys are willing to sell their cards, their trophy cards like that. But particularly for those lower prices that were existed before. But it's a quick windfall for them. And I certainly imagine they never thought that this would be, that you never looked at these things as maybe investments or that sort of idea around them. Probably in a lot of cases, it was more like, who are these wackos who would actually pay me something for this? Probably was more of the reality.
Yeah, I remember that one in particular, buying it in person, just literally hours after it was awarded, just being in that room. A few of his friends were there, like all the hype, and he's like holding the trophy, and the card was just like, oh yeah, take it, I'll take those $100 bills instead.
It really goes to the psychology of like, what's valuable is what's valuable to your community. There's a social value. And so it's like, the trophy is the sign to the other people who he's friends with that he's awesome, right? To us in our community, the sign that you're awesome is having one of those cards or having one of those trophy cards. And I think that's an important piece to all of this is when you want to be one of those guys, right? You want to, like, there are plenty of people watching the stream right now who want to be one of these guys, one of us, right? And that's part of why they're collecting, why they're engaging. They want to start a YouTube channel, be involved in these conversations. And I bet it's the same thing for these players, right? They want to be one of those guys who are the top players who have that trophy and are part of that. Okay. People are speculating on what I was going after tonight. Some speculations were Evolution's booster box cases. Yep. I'm loading up. I've been trying to take that market forever so I can buy all of it. That's really what it's all been about the entire time. All right. Let's see. What do you guys think of some of the Jungle No Symbol PWCC sales last night? Did those prices seem reasonable?
I don't know what they went for.
Yeah.
They appear to be going around the price of first edition when I just quickly glanced on some of them, but I didn't look at them like super carefully. I've yet to I've been so busy with work and multiple things I'm doing. I haven't had a time. Usually I do sit down. It's also hard because there's so many freaking cards.
There was a ton last night.
Errors are not something that interest me too much. I collect like the regular cards that come out of the packs. So like even for modern sets, for EX eras, even though the reverse hollows are beautiful, I don't even collect the reverse hollows for most sets. So I don't follow them. I've had a few that I've sold over the years. I think they're interesting, but they don't interest me really.
Yeah. How about you, Nick? Any interest in them?
Not so much. I have a set of them just for my binder collection, but outside of that, I'm not too big into errors. Obviously, the no damage Ninetales.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like, maybe this would be right up your alley.
I could take them or leave them. Yeah.
Just that one error. You're zoned in.
That's really it for me. I'm just after that one error.
It's fun. one thing. It's
no, it's actually so much fun having one card that you go after.
a lot of it's fun. I do suggest people try it, like who haven't ever tried that type of collecting, even if you can pick like a cheap one. Obviously, there's like the buyout, market principles of doing that can be smart, but even just like it's just fun, like filling up like a binder of just like tons of the same card. There's something satisfying about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So Gemmin Pokemon would be upset with us as those are his very favorite, those simple cards, but not, I never saw the value in them that the market saw. So I think that they're cool. I certainly would have bought them at like a thick stamp, thin stamp situation, or even a gray stamp type, 10-20% maybe price differential, but I never saw the multiplier that the market saw around them. And I kind of think that Gem Mint, that Zach caused a lot of that to happen. Not for any manipulative. Zach is a zero manipulative. He's just a hardcore collector. I promise you guys. But just in terms of like, he had a YouTube channel and we all watched him. Like he is one of the central figures in the Pokemon hobby, and that YouTube channel was one of the central figures. And just seeing what he was collecting and what he was enjoying, it was contagious. And so I think that his love and joy for that really sparked more interest in that versus something like No Rarity, which took a really long time to take off and had no interest or no value in the beginning in a differential. And then things like Gray Stamp. And although I know he and TCA Gaming do talk about that, but maybe it's also just like it's kind of lame that like it's just like lack of printing ink, probably. It's just like, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't get it.
Even the thick thin that you brought up briefly, I have a complete base set first edition.
Yeah.
PSA 9 hollows. What's thick, what's thin? I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're all uniform or not. I look at the hollows. I look at the picture. I mean,
I had to make sure my stamps matched. So I bought my Charizard.
Here we go.
Everything else had to be thin.
I like it. I like that we have the range. Yeah, my collection would drive you crazy, Nick. My collection is like all over the place. I have like every set in Pokemon, but it's all like mismatched, For me, it was always like the best deal, the best deal. But I did have the goal. I wanted to have one of every single hollow and rare from base set to the end of Black and White era. Mm-hmm. So that was my goal coming into the hobby, was to have one of every single one, and fell very short, extremely short, particularly for like there's so many regular hollow cards that I don't have. From some of those eras that I was always like, there's zero market, there's zero interest in these. There probably will never be, there might never be. So I might be the one like down the line grading these, for myself. I'm talking about like regular, non-popular hollows from like Black and White. Yeah, from some of these like these packs that we're barely we're going for like nothing, and there's almost no interest in that era outside of the full arts, which did get interest, and there is appeal for it. Nick, how long have you been in the hobby?
So I got back in with the selling side in 2009.
Okay, so you've been here the longest of the three.
Yeah, and then collecting was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So later to collect than me, but much earlier back into it.
That's cool that the three of us have three different, time periods. But I think we're all pretty like aware of like what happened or the different things. And I know that for me, I spent the first like 2-3 years saying absolutely nothing to anyone and just absorbing info from everyone who had been here longer, basically just like on E4, just reading, watching everyone's YouTube channels. Before I opened my mouth. Okay. Question for Catch 'em All Collectibles. Do you prefer tops to the TCG, or were those cheaper to buy back when you were buying them?
Oh, that question actually came in quite a while ago. I actually answered that in the chat from my phone.
Oh,
But
apologies. We can skip it if you
well,
answered it.
just briefly, I like
We're
that
really
vintage
far back in the chat.
Pokemon. I've got these uncut sheets behind me. I bought really, really cheap. An opportunity came up, so I just bought them. Sheets are kind of interesting to me. Over the years, I've dwindled down what I had just because I don't have place to display them. So they're all just laying flat in their top loaders. But um, it's crazy to think quite a ways back, you mentioned some of these, even though the bubbles popped, whatever, on certain things. And Tops has really been one of those things, like Tops Chrome, what that has done the past several months is crazy. I was opening, I had a case of Tops Chrome and of Tops Movie 2000 with the first appearance cards and Series 1, and they were fun cards to open. I little bit nostalgic. I do remember having some of that back in the day, but so kind of just another joy for me. Not really better than the TCG, not really worse, just different.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Nick, on those?
They're starting to grow on me now. I'd like to eventually pick up a Series 1 and 2 Chrome set. Wish I'd done that a long time ago, but I was really never a big fan of them back in the day when they were actually cheap and you could actually afford them. I was always focused on the TCG side.
Yeah, I have some of them somewhere here. See if I pull them out. Yeah, I had no connection to them as a kid. I might have opened up some, but I didn't remember them at all. So it just wasn't of interest to me a lot. And then when I actually bought a few of them and looked at them in person, and I liked the sparkle and the techno and some of the stuff they had going on, and the rarity intrigued me and interested me. So I was trying to pick some of them up. Didn't pick very much up though. In part because there wasn't that much coming up on the market. There's more of these other things. So I'm seeing these sealed boxes around, people trying to sell them. I'm seeing a lot of booster box breaks of them, like on Facebook and other places. Some guys with like a lot of them. I saw a guy with definitely he has 5 to 10 of them. Open them up. People are buying them, paying a lot of money. I think he's shilling them, hard selling, grosses me out. It's just telling people how established that, and amazing and doesn't give any of the danger, the risk, the negatives, how new of a market it is, how all these sorts of things. But I do think with the increase, although I like the Top Soon cards and the Card S cards so much better from a just vintagey feel and appeal, I think the Tops is sort of the equivalent of that on that English side for English collectors. Mm-hmm. There seems to be, and I think with that market taking off, it only makes sense that probably an equally rare and difficult market, getting these Tops techno cards in particular, right? These really hard ones in 9 or 10. Probably is a similar sort of challenge to getting those blue back, or particularly the no number blue back in Top Zone, and then being the full art, full Pokemon. I see similarities. I think those markets affected each other, and I think people interested in them, I think, are similar. The type interested in them. I do think they're historic and they are vintage and they're from that time period, and I think they do have quite a bit going for them though. But just be careful with the stuff that isn't established, as established, I think. And I don't know if I'd like to think that the pop reports aren't going to balloon. I've been checking Topson. Topson's been pretty good. And I would imagine this will follow suit, but I just don't know. Do you guys have any sense on how many more might come out? Dan, you were going to say something.
I think a Spectra 10 Charizard went for 10,000 tonight, and to me that feels like a really big number, though I don't know how many more could be out there. The thing that scares me is base Chrome, as I mentioned earlier, I really don't do reverse hollows and I really don't do variants. So sadly, when I probably opened 10 Chrome boxes years ago, and I sold. So again, buying something bigger to get what I want for my collection, I bought the box, I sold the Sparkles, Technos, and Spectras to pay for the box. And a lot of times I ended up with a profit. I had the fortune to pull 2 Techno Charizards back in the day. But those were rare. I mean, 2 per box, and those are very expensive boxes now. I've bought many collections local, more a few years ago, but
Yeah.
Technos did not come up much, and I'm not really worried about the variants, but like the base ones, I have a lot of base Topps Chrome at PSA right now.
Yeah.
I would caution people paying. I think the base Charizard is like $7,000, $6,000 recently. I probably graded and sold 10 of those for $100 a piece, and that doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, that doesn't prove they shouldn't be 7,000, but I think there's a lot more out there. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton more, but I do have a few more there. I have a couple mint ones in binders that are going to be coming out and going in.
Yeah, I don't see any of the chrome very much. I see like the non-chrome quite a bit from childhood collections. It's rare that I see the chrome, in part because the chrome was always more expensive, and I think parents would buy the cheaper non-chrome for kids, because it was all, it was like the same, right, to kids. So, but this is why, like, it's so great to get that our opinions, or you take them for what they are, which is our own experiences, right? And the qualitative data from our own experiences. And I think that Dan is a little bit in a unique position. There are not a lot of Dans in the world. Dan may not not think that, but don't think that there are a lot of Dans in this world who are opening up 10 Chrome Topps booster boxes and all these things, and were engaged in it to the level you were and doing that much. So I think your experience is probably I think even my experience is not usual, and yours is even more. That being said, I don't know. And I also don't know where they might be more prevalent, for example, in different areas of the country, and like that's the type of stuff that it's like, it's pretty up in the air. What's your experience been, Nick? Have you seen them out in collections, out in the wild, in good condition at all?
I don't know about anymore, but I know going back a while ago now, 2015, 2016, there were a few people, or I know of one person that was down in Georgia, and they had a lot of Topps Chrome boxes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there were at least a few people that had a fairly large position on that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm wary of like warehouse issues for like something like that. Like a lot more worried about that than a WotC box that was really popular and were just selling like hotcakes and they couldn't print enough. I'm worried about, like, was some of that overprinted, and is it somewhere in large quantity? And you have Birdman, to go back to what we were talking about before, smart guys who know how to trickle things out with that sort of thing. But that's true. I mean, Gary has an insane collection of.
Oh yeah, no, that
so that's true wherever for all of these things. Then you get protected by things like the technos, right? As to Dan's point, which I think is that really good point. It's like the higher you go up, you're protected by that additional rarity. You're protected by the difficulty to grade plus the additional rarity. Same exact thing with like me buying that Clefable yesterday. You're protected. You're kind of versus like the common EVs, right? You're protected by these levels of that even if there are thousands left, you're going to pull 10, 15, 20, and 2 of them are going to get 10s. So it's just even if they do come out over time. And then you also have to think about the price point for the boxes are so high on Jungle for the Clefable, and then also on these chromes that it's going to, people who open it to get those things are going to be asking a really high price for those items. And it's going to take a lot to have that stuff retrace a lot, I think. So. All right. Josh Harris says, did you finally get your first edition Shining Charizard, Jake? Nope. That's a card I've never, guys. No. Still waiting. Almost bought Dan's whole collection.
Yeah, we talked about that in our interview.
I didn't really almost buy it. I tried to lowball Dan, and Dan used the lowball smartly. We actually weren't too far apart. I think we were probably, because if you had come down a little more, I was in my head, I think I offered you like 45,000, and and I think you counted at 60.
Mhm.
And maybe I offered like 40 and you counted at 60 and I came to 45 and you said that's it. Basically, if you had come down to like 55, I think I would have gone like 52, 53.
You had really good leverage too, because I had just bought a second house and it was like a fixer upper. I was paying 2 mortgages and I was putting like 40 grand into the house I just bought. So I was very cash poor at that point.
I'm happy I didn't buy it from you, Dan. I'm happy you still have it, because we wouldn't be friends. You probably
definitely not.
In a lot of ways, and also you're a great guy and important to the hobby. Even though you're not as well known, I think you're hopefully will become more well known by these YouTube things. Dan is a in my opinion, and Nick too. Like, these are two legendy type people in the hobby who have really done it for years and have the knowledge. So there's so many people starting YouTube channels right now who, it's great. And it's great that people are starting channels and they're excited, but there are people in this hobby who have bought and sold millions of dollars of product over a lot of years and have been extremely successful and seen a lot of different environments. And I'm actually coming out with a new video soon on this topic of like, who should you listen to and what should you look for? We'll see how well that's received. And
just since it came up, I want to bring up the fact that I almost sold that. I was very cash poor. If I had sold it, it would have been with the intent to, I built that once, I could build it again. Be very careful about any assumptions you make. And anytime you make a sale, like, try to make sure that it's going towards something tangible and useful. Like, that would have just been, I had the money to get my house refurbishment done. It just would have made me a little more comfortable throughout that period. I wouldn't have put it into anything specific though. It would have just been in my bank account. And then when I went to repurchase things 2 months later, I would have only gotten a fraction of it back. And so like, I've made some very common question you see around YouTube and forums and whatever, like, what do you regret selling? I would have very much regret that. I have sold some other things that went way up after I sold them. One thing that comes to mind is like the PSA 9 Gold Star set that I sold. I sold it to another forum member, good price at the time, but then it skyrocketed afterwards. I bought my number 1 Pikachu though. That's what that funded. So whenever you sell, like, sell with intent and be prepared to sometimes never see things again. I mean, if you time things wrong.
And the positive end to the story for me, I guess, is that I took that money and I put it all into the hobby. So, and honestly, I put it into Top Zone, Cardass, and Level X's, which have made me a lot more money than probably even if I had bought that collection at a nice rate.
So it was a win-win.
So it was a win-win. But yeah, I was serious about it. And there was such great value. Even at the time, that would have been a great steal for me at that price. So you were wise to hold off.
Hisoka's actually in the chat. He sold a big chunk of his collection a while back for a car, and
I know Hisoka well. Yeah, Hisoka's another guy, great guy, super knowledgeable, knows the flipping game in and out. How's he doing? Hisoka, if you want to tell us in the chat, where are you at with your new collection goals? I know you were buying and selling a lot of like jungle fossil, flipping it to try and raise capital. I think he's a Gold Star Nintendo EX era guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he wants, I think that was his like goal of completing those again, or maybe he wanted to complete. Maybe I watched a video of his where he was talking about like full arts from like Black and White, even like some of the newer stuff and middle generation stuff. But people are saying Z&G also has a live going on right now. We're competing with there's only so much audience. We're all friends and have the same audience. There's only so much audience around.
I think he was in the chat earlier. He was in the chat earlier, I think. I did see that on Instagram.
To be fair, I'm invading his territory. He does Tuesday night chats every week. So to be fair. People are saying if Jake is starting to buy, is that the go sign to buy? That you're gonna have to make those decisions for yourself. And what I've said is like my personal opinion is like I think we're in for a period of up and down forces, and that the cards that you really have been watching and waiting for, if you see a dip, it's not a bad time to buy. It's not a bad time to buy on those, particularly if they're really low pop cards. Very few have come up on the market in the last year, or very new have been added to the pop report. I think that those types of items are becoming more attractive, particularly if you're very comfortable losing like 20 to 30% more, like retracing 20 to 30% more, understanding that you can't time the bottom of that. And so, buying in that sort of bottom area is where you want to be. And I think that we're potentially in there for some of these cards. That's my feeling. I don't know if do you guys feel the same thing about any parts of the market?
I think we can. I think with like more common stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I think we're still going to see pricing fall as we see more and more supply with the graded cards coming back from PSA, especially with these non-hollows. I know Dan did as well, submitted a whole bunch of like first edition jungle through I did first edition jungle through Team Rocket, and I just got those cards back a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
I've been selling those cards like crazy because I just want to get rid of them because I think they're just going to continue to drop.
Yeah, you just got to go back to what was being graded a few years ago and think about what's in the backlog. Like all these cards that newly went up like crazy exponentially, and you can still find on Troll and Toad near mint for like a couple bucks, and for some reason they're selling for 50, 60, 100 plus.
Yeah. I would just be particularly careful on the 8s and the 7s. When you're buying an 8 or a 7 of like a jungle first edition common, you're just helping that guy get his price out of it. And really that guy should have lost money. Like you should be able to get that for below the grading cost at this point. So that's my personal feeling on it.
Yeah.
I think the 9s and the 10s have, particularly the 10s, do have more upside and potential long-term upside. I'm more bullish on them than you are, Dan, from our last conversation on it in the long run.
Yeah.
I think you and Mark, Enlightened Bulbasaur, I think share a more similar pessimistic view on them, which is very well warranted. I'm bullish on like there could be so many people in the Pokemon hobby, and the price point on those is so attractive and is going to hit every generation so well, and people could own so many of them. I see 10,000 of those being so much more easily eaten up than like the 10,000 evolutions we're going to see and the 10,000 of all these modern sets we're going to see. So that's my feeling, and we're so far away from 10,000. Like they're right. I mean, we're still below base set first edition for all of these. Quite a bit below. No, it's going to quickly surpass it as these cards come back that everyone's sending in. We're so far off. We're far off 1,000 right now for each of these cards, in 10, let alone 10,000. So I don't even know if we're going to get to 10,000.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I would much rather own a PSA 10 first edition common jungle Eevee than a PSA 10 first edition gold secret rare some random card. Maybe other people don't feel that way. Or let's compare it to like a regular GX, which has a better chance or a more easy chance of getting to that 10,000 if it were to retain value. I'm seeing people pay $100, $150, $200, $250, $300 in some cases for a card like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see people paying like $120 for like a jungle first edition, card. And I'm like, that's a much better buy. That PSA 10, $120 for me, in my opinion, jungle first edition PSA 10 card than this other card over here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so that's part of why I'm not so hard on those. And it's only $120. So I'm not going to break the bank. And I see them retracing. I don't think they go below $60, $70, $80 because of if PSA keeps their prices so high where the slab is worth $50. That's my feeling on it. I think that the fact that the slab is higher actually raises the floor. I think before the floor would have been around $50 for a 10, 25 for a 9 type of thing where it would have settled to the point where I don't think we'll ever send them in anymore. Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever get back to a point where, because I know just last year or so, you'd basically break even on a 9. You'd make a decent amount on 10. I don't think we'll ever get back to that point where even like 9s are that low, but I do think it's going to come down a little bit. But I think there will be margin with 9 and a 10 from going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the biggest thing supporting the price is just going to be the new normal for pricing. I feel like we're not going to see any grading options at PSA for sub 100 for the rest of the year. Maybe we'll get down to 50, but I doubt that, or anything lower just seems completely unfeasible to me. So that'll really, I'm at a weird spot with, like, I'm going to have a lot of those cards coming back.
Yeah.
My strategy is pretty much don't try to think I'm smarter than the market. I just see what the market's doing and I sell it. These cards I'm comfortable selling at whatever the market dictates, because I know I've got a lot more. I've got a lot more in monster boxes that I can send if I need to.
Yeah, I mean, I would fire sell all those 8s that I saw from your return. That's for sure. Those it's like, just get your money back, get the hell out, you know. Like, when I'm asking those cards, that's how I feel.
The crazy thing is, and nobody go to my eBay and buy the 8s, buy the 9s and the 10s. But the 8s are like, I'm pricing the cheapest on eBay, and I'm pricing them for like 25 to 40. Like, I should be punished. I should be getting $5 and lose money with shipping. And
the thing is there's such a big market for graded cards, and there's a lot of people who don't own a graded card who still want their first card. There are also lots of kids who love graded cards now, and parents are buying a cheap graded card for a kid for a present. So, and there are lots of stores that are buying graded cards cheap. They're going on eBay, buying cheap graded cards, and then they're putting them in their display cases, like physical stores, and then selling them for 100, 150, and people are buying them locally. So all of that type of activity is going on, which is eating those up. The problem is how many of those freaking things are at PSA right now, right? Like, that's why I'm like, right now, we're still in a situation where there's not enough yet of those types of cards that it's stopping that, you know, that there's still enough of that demand, I think, and buyers to keep it. But how long will that last? I don't know. And I think even more to the point, in terms of people arguing that those are good investments, and the craziness of people arguing those are like the best investments are going to be like $10,000 someday, right? That's where we get into the craziness and people really believe this. And there are whole YouTube channels where they talk about that with guys with 6,000 subscribers, just like this one, telling everyone that, you know, and people, like, you know, nodding their heads, commenting along with it. But that's where it gets really dangerous. So, and I think with the Jungle PSA 10 first editions, for example, that's getting those prices moving up again. That's going to be that hurdle, because there's going to be so much of that supply. I think that there's a floor there for those, because I think they're desirable, but getting it moving again in the positive direction is going to be tough. Although once it gets moving in the positive direction, I think it will continue to move. The question is, will there ever be enough buyers over the multiple generations, you know, people with disposable income to eventually, you know, grab all of those, buy them for presents for people, all that sort of stuff. That's what we'll have to see. And there's just nothing to compare it to from other hobbies. Like, this is the thing is, you know, I'm the comparison to comic books, you know, sports cards, all these things. And there isn't something like that. The closest is like alpha lands, or, you know, or maybe not even alpha, because that's too rare, even the lands compared to Jungle, but like beta or revised or unlimited type lands, or maybe similar to those like common and commons. And the problem with Magic is it's just so much less popular than Pokemon, and is gonna be so much less popular, in my opinion, into the future. And so with all the demand in Pokemon, there's this upside. There is this potential, you know, that I think that some of these other things don't have, but who knows? All right. How you guys doing in terms of hanging out and time? You guys need to leave at any point?
Good till whenever.
I'm having fun hanging out. We can just keep chilling. Yeah, let's keep doing it.
I get to sleep until whenever I want tomorrow. So whenever you guys are ready.
Good. Sounds good.
Unfortunately, I do the sound only on the side, so I do have to go to work tomorrow, but I can be a little sleepy.
What about, you guys want to do another hour, or is that too much? 30 minutes, hour?
That would work.
Hour would work with me.
Okay, let's do it. We'll do a solid stream for you guys tonight. Okay. All right. So many questions. Sorry, guys. Let's see where we want to attack here. Maybe we should. Do you guys want to start towards the bottom or the middle somewhere? You guys want to pull out questions that you think are interesting?
Yeah, sure.
You want me to do my job and lead the stream? Someone asking about the Domino's Snorlax card. Will says, anyone know anything about the Domino's Snorlax ending soon? It's an awesome card. So there are two. The two of the Domino's Snorlax. There's the level X, right? Oh wait, am I messing that up? Yes, there's the level X one, which I believe has the Domino's label on it, and then there's the one that I like, which is the one eating like a bunch of tomatoes in the kitchen or something like that. You guys know the card I'm talking about?
I know that one. I didn't know about the level X one.
I believe the level X one actually isn't from a set. I think it's from the same promo.
Okay.
But I might be off on that. I can check it
I'm not
out.
even aware of that card.
Yeah, if you guys want to look up or answer it. Nick, because you're aware of it, what are your thoughts to start us off on that one?
I like the artwork. But like I said, with that mid-era stuff, I'm not too big into buying anything for my own collection from that kind of mid-era.
I like pizza and I like Snorlax, so I didn't know of the card before, but I'm a fan now.
Yes, I was right. The level X has a domino symbol also in the bottom left-hand corner. I think I do own that card somewhere. Have you guys seen the KFC? I forget
some foreign country, right?
Yeah.
I've seen something about that on Facebook.
I want to say it's like Indonesia or Taiwan or I'm not exactly sure, but
I think Indonesia sounds right.
The KFC symbol is so big. Have you seen it? It's comical. It's like KFC, and it's right where the set symbol, like in vintage WotC, instead of like the bottom corners, they just threw it like. Yeah, you guys should look it up. It's hilarious. Sorry, I'm not answering the Domino's question. I love the I really like both of those cards. I think the promotional cards with things like Domino's, I really like the 7-Eleven promos. I think those are really slept on. Beautiful, cool Japanese cards. Of course, the McDonald's promos are the classic ones. Those starters, the Pikachu, the Umbreon, and the Sunrise Mew are all fantastic as far as those types of brand cards. But some of these other, like the 7-Eleven and the Domino's, are more slept on and not known about. And I think it's cool when they do those brand type partnerships and those crossovers. As well as Snorlax is awesome. And Snorlax eating like pizza or eating like tomatoes.
It's a good combo right there.
Yeah, it's a great
Can't
combo.
go wrong.
Snorlax eating a bunch of pizzas at Domino's is a great, great concept.
Radar's in the chat, Nick, talking about your banner. I think you bought that from Sean, right?
Yeah, no, this came from Sean, Squeaks Game World. He finally let go his banner. I was super happy about that. So finally covers up all the boxes I got back here in the background.
And I'm so far up in the chat that feel free, like if people want to ask questions at the bottom, if you guys see one that we haven't talked about that you think would be good, throw it out there. You guys can watch the bottom while all right.
Okay.
Or if there's an interesting comment or point of disagreement or something, it's always fun. All right. Okay, Jonathan B says, why do some collectors care about rarity? How does knowing how many other people have a copy of that card affect how much you enjoy the card? I don't care about rarity at all. Help. It's a great question. So I have a couple of thoughts, but why don't you guys go first?
I mentioned like when I started collecting, I just wanted to do it in like the optimal way, get the most, like the best value. And So rarity, as long as I'm getting a good price relative to it, it's just like safety. Like right now, all the uncertainty that we've got going on in the Pokemon market, as we touched on, a lot of things are down, but a lot of the rarer things aren't. So there's just more safety buying it. And I guess the counterpoint to that would be, if it wasn't rare and there was just millions of them, you could buy them for really cheap. And I mean, I'm all for buying cheap things I enjoy too. So you can kind of go either way on it, but rarity, and I like to think that I'm not solely motivated collecting the full art Pikachus because, ooh, look at what I've got. You can't collect it. Like there can only be so many of these collections built in the world. I really enjoy the art. The rarity is just getting the collector side of me satisfied, getting it, and then having more like safety in my mind of like, I think this can be a good investment too. Like that's a peace of mind to me and something I enjoy.
He's lying, guys. He doesn't even like the cards. He just wants you to not have them. That's
Yeah.
Dan collects because he hates Pokemon, but he tries to get all of the products so that other people can have them. How about you, Nick? What's your feeling on rarity?
I think it's so I obviously enjoy collecting for the artwork and all that, but I think rarity is really important. Not just when you talk about like the trophy Pika trophies or anything like that, but even getting down into like the I guess less rare stuff. If everything went to zero and everything was worth the same and had the same chase to it, I don't think I'd be collecting. I think I would get really bored of it, and I don't think I'd be in the hobby. So I personally do enjoy the having to either save up to purchase whatever item or having to spend time researching to accomplish whichever goal. And then with the rarity, obviously comes investing, safer investments and all that type of stuff. But that's kind of where I would take that question.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on the two main points. I think being one, when we talk about the market, it's simple supply and demand, and the demand could be huge. There's a huge amount of demand for water, but there's a lot of supply right now. There's a huge amount of demand for air that we can breathe, but there's a large supply. And so, if someone could, whatever examples, but it gets the point. I won't tangent too much more into it, but the point just being that yeah, what creates value is when a lot of people want something and there isn't enough of it to go around, that there's that scarcity, and then that drives the price up on it. Okay. But the other point you guys are making, right, is that chase point, and that the fun of it is the chase. It's the difficulty to acquire that makes it fun to try and acquire it, that makes it fun to save up so that you have the money to acquire that difficult to chase item. I think that I would still definitely collect cards and would enjoy it and would make master sets, but I wouldn't, but part of the joy is the chase also. And I wouldn't have that anymore. I would just have the joy of like looking at the cards, which I still would enjoy. So I don't think that it's like, there's nothing else other than rarity in the hobby. When I open Modern, a lot of the times my favorite cards are like random cards that aren't the chase cards, that aren't these types of things that I think actually have the coolest starter. And I have binders filled up with cards that are just like my favorite cards that don't have anything to do with value or rarity. But I also love the rarity. And then I also like investing, and I like feeling that I was right, and I like predicting markets and the fun of the game of that. And that's all supply and demand and being aware of that. And then I also like the idea of, if I'm going to put a lot of money into something that I enjoy, as a huge added benefit, unlike buying like a bunch of like cars where I drive it off the lot and I've destroyed, and I can buy something that I really enjoy a lot, that I look at a lot, appreciate, and it can appreciate in value, or at least retain some value, instead of going to zero or going to nothing, like going out to dinner or going on a vacation. I still love going out to dinner. I love going out to vacation. I do those sorts of things, but the fact that there's rarity in this adds a lot, because it adds that ability that like, I can enjoy this and make money off of it. I can enjoy it, and at least not lose everything. And so I think that those are key parts of what creates collectability. And and value. And collectability goes hand in hand with value. Something needs to be collectible. People need to want it, and there needs to not be enough of it in order for that value to happen. All right. So I think we answered that one. I think we're all in agreement there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share your thoughts on the 1996 Japanese Cardhouse vending Charizard trainer?
I think that's an awesome card. I had two. I sold one, so I still got one, but I wish I never sold my second one. I absolutely love that card.
Yep.
I'm honestly not too vending early Japanese non-TCG stuff, and then even some of the vending, and I've got to learn more about that stuff. I'm really English focused, and then some Japanese trophies and rare promos is all I've really gotten into. There's just so much. Certain times I try to not dive down another rabbit hole because then I worry how much money I'm going to spend and what I'm going to fill my house with next.
Yeah, I did a room recently with John with Pokemon Radar on Clubhouse not too long ago now, on a lot of these sets, just talking about, and I think that I'm, fairly knowledgeable on all of these different non-TCG, Pokemon stuff, and people were coming to me with stuff that I had never seen or heard of before. So it just shows that there's so many. And like every year has like a Meiji, and like a different Meiji, and like then there's like the cards, and then there's like the stickers, and then there's the lenticulars. Like there's so much variety. And someone like Nick, who has the advantage of being in the hobby a lot longer, will have a natural advantage on seeing those things. But also a lot of that stuff there wasn't much market for, so I don't think we saw that much of it. Or it wasn't as present, and so some of it too is kind of, we're seeing these cards come out. A set that a lot of people don't know that I really liked is that like 1997 like Topps Versus, which has the same Prism cards, and it has like the Pokemon Game Boy game looking like one Pokemon here, one Pokemon there. Like there are all these types of things that because PSA didn't grade. And now BGS will grade anything. Basically, it doesn't need to be a card. They'll grade anything that seemingly. There are markets being established, and I think that there are cards within that for people watching, that there are markets that are going to be established around these things. Probably some of the good ones that aren't yet, and there is definite potential if you can get there first and figure out which ones are the rare ones, which ones are the coolest ones, and how do you grade those and get those to market and then build that market. There's still plenty of potential there. So, and there's still plenty of people, who are fairly experty, or top sort of 100-y experty, in terms of knowledge, who don't know all of those sets. In fact, they're probably almost, I would imagine. To throw you guys out there, who do you guys think? Like, who do you think is like the most knowledgeable person that you come across on like those E4 forums? Someone who just seems to know all the answers to things like that, like all the intricate, like historical details. Let's give someone a shout out. If you guys have,
I would say I don't know how to say his name. Quador, the Pikachu guy though.
Yeah,
he seems to be super knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for anyone who doesn't know him, he's a guy on E4. He collects like I think he does only TCG though, right? Anything Pikachu, which Pikachu's in so many sets. So he goes after like the really obscure languages, what sets were printed in what languages. And yeah, he dives really deep. I mean, just broad, everybody will know the name, but like TCA Gaming, just broad knowledge. He's been around so long, mostly geared towards the TCG, but he actually ran like a storefront for a while, and he got into some other TCGs, and he throws up occasionally like really obscure Pokemon toys and different oddball things on his as well. So
that's the whole other area is the the merchandise, the all the toys and the different types of Pokemon stuff that kind of surrounds the hobby. and all the different pins and
I've got the battling coins up there.
yeah, like the coins and those are all markets that I can see doing well, although it might take the next bubble. It's like those types of things. It's like how much money is left, how much interest money is left in this one to drive things. But there's so much Pokemon stuff that as those age, right, collecting all these very difficult, some of those coins are from products that are extremely expensive or very difficult to find, these types of things, or from events, right? I think, right, is that, Dan, did they give them out for events at all?
No, these are just the battling coins, kind of like the trading figure game, or if anyone played the app while it existed, the Pokemon Duel. You spin two things, what numbers land on it. I actually had those in my youth, so they were pretty nostalgic for me. Years ago, I was buying them for like 25, 50 cents a coin. I think they're going like a few dollars a coin. So as far as like return, I think they've done well. It's quite the meme too, but like I actually have a complete set of the marbles in the carrying case. If you really want to like dive into the marbles, there's like first edition and there's the different colors and there's so many variants. Like
that's so interesting.
Yeah, I've
crazy.
I don't know that there's anybody. I think there's probably like a forum out there where people are just like hardcore into that, but you can go so deep in so many different areas of this hobby. It's just amazing.
That's awesome.
Really is. There's almost too much you can collect.
Okay, let's see. And feel free to shout out questions, guys, if you see some at the bottom. A lot of conversations around the dominoes.
Yeah.
In the middle here.
I see Josh Harris asked do you think graded games are redundant? Seems odd to grade the seal in case of a game instead of the disc inside. Isn't there more value just buying a sealed copy instead of graded? I don't own any graded games, but they have exploded. I mean, an analog would be, I mean, we're not doing it. Maybe we'll do it someday, but graded boxes aren't a thing, but graded packs are.
Yeah.
So at first thought, like, that's silly. Why would you grade the foil of a pack? But they do have their own art. A lot of games have covers that are nostalgic. Like I played N64 when I was growing up, and I haven't bought any yet, but even Game Boy Color games, and I see that box art of Pokemon Yellow and it just brings me back. Like I've already got the game. I've got my original save file from way back when with all 150 Pokemon, but to encapsulate, like I would love to have a high graded copy of Pokemon Yellow because just that case is nostalgia. So I get it.
I think a big part of the grading for video games is also for resales. So I know with the pricing now, that's a big issue, and it seems to be fairly easy to actually reseal a game and make it look semi decent. At least for someone like me who I don't follow video games too much. So I wouldn't really know what to look for, but it seems like you could get screwed over fairly easily. And I think grading's really important when it comes to that type of stuff.
So more like the authentication side of it that it provides also.
Yeah, I'm in the learning process for video games, so I've been trying to learn some more. I think it's interesting. Yeah, as you guys said, prices absolutely have exploded in the last month, really, even more than it was before. I think I like a stat. I feel like I missed out. I feel like I should have bought them while they were cheaper. So, and I don't think that that's all just like, I don't think I'm being driven by hype with that. I think that's me. I like them, and I wasn't expecting this type of movement, and I was expecting more of the movement on these cards and the values of those things to go up more than just because those were actually collected. Cards are collected to Josh's question, and video games weren't so much collected; they're played. and engaged with more that way. Now, there certainly have always been video game collectors, and there are people who collected video games, but almost everyone who is interested in Pokemon collected the cards, and or a huge amount versus played the game, and was just had that relationship. And so psychologically, I was just like, well, I just think that it's more of a natural fit for these to be collector items and go up in price over time. So I'm going to put my time and attention there. But I get it. And I have friends who have come to me and been like, we know you're super into this stuff now. I'm not going to get into the Pokemon world, but I'm actually super into collecting vintage video games. What have you learned? Can you give me tips? Do you know anything about it? So I think too, there's a little bit of that maybe appeal for, I think Pokemon still has a kid thing and a nerdy thing that video games is a little bit better of kind of avoiding. But I do think that Pokemon has made strides in that, and I do think we'll probably continue to. I also think there are pluses that come with the kid thing though, and the multi generations being connected to the characters versus some of these video games. A Mario, there's going to be multiple generations connected to Mario, but some of these like specific video games from our childhood that aren't necessarily continuing to be made or kind of very, very niche. I'm not sure those make a lot of sense to be purchasing at these prices versus something that's going to have that kind of multi-generational appeal and connection. So that's the type of stuff I'd be thinking about if I was in there. But as far as like just the item itself, I think it makes sense. I think that they look cool. It helps protect it. It's a display piece. I would worry about the seal coming undone over time. I'd worry about that sort of thing. Maybe the box can help with that. Maybe it doesn't matter and it still would. And then what does the grade actually mean? It means nothing then.
Yeah.
But
one thing I do like with video games that's just interesting is you can see like the print numbers, you can see the production numbers for a lot of the games. And that's, Nick shares this with me. We both came from a background of like coins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I really love about coins is you can see the actual mintages. You don't know how many were, when you're looking at like silver coins, how many were melted over time. One thing you'll never know with video games is what percentage were opened. I mean, some of these, I see some really modern games, like we've outlasted PWCC at this point, but there's apparently 3 items ending in 3 days. There's a 2018 Let's Go Pikachu that's graded. Ultra modern graded games, like one, look at the production numbers. The production numbers on some of these games might be lower than Red, Yellow, and Blue, but obviously like what percentage of those have survived. That game, you might be able to go on Amazon and buy brand new sealed right now for MSRP. So that's kind of interesting.
We're gonna start seeing all the Pokemon Snap 2 games getting graded now.
Yeah.
Pokemon Hollow says, Jake, let's talk about how can someone be confident about the future of Pokemon value. I don't know. We've certainly have touched on a lot of those themes.
So I'll jump in on this one. I have a 2 going on 3-year-old, and when I got home from work today at 5 till when he went to bed, we had Pokemon on the TV the whole time, and he was singing the intro every time it came on. And Netflix will sometimes kind of skip the intro, and he makes me go back and play it. So just seeing like people I know of all ages, I mean, it's just got such broad appeal. It's the largest grossing media franchise of all time. We're on, what are we on? 800 and something different species, and the 8th generation of games, and 25th anniversary. I think we've got a lot of steam behind this, a lot of momentum, and I just don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So I don't think everything across the board is going to hold value, and we've talked about that multiple times. So some things are going to go down, but there's just a big core fan base that is massive.
And I like what Gary says too, how he says as long as Pokemon keeps printing sets, we're safe. And then even after they stop printing sets and Pokemon kind of the Pokemon company dies out, we're still safe for the next 15, 20 years. I just think that's so true right there. And right now we don't see any signs whatsoever of the company dying out or stopping at any time. So I think we're safe for the very, very long term.
Even if the stop being printed, as long as they're still making video games or there's some sort of thing, I think that too it can keep it going. Maybe not quite as much, or there'd be a little bit of loss there, but just look at comic books. My answer is just look at comic books, study comic books as to how something can go up hugely in value over time that's beloved and where there's a amount of it. It's a case study in the ups. If you study the ups and downs of the comic book market and apply it to Pokemon, you're going to do very well. Okay. That's my advice to understanding how collectible markets work.
Mm.
Okay. And that's part of why I'm so strong about some of my convictions and why I push people to think so much about what did retain value and what really exponentially grew in value and what didn't. And it wasn't just like everything goes up over time, which is the thing that most of the people get wrong. That there's like anything, add age to anything, and it's going to be expensive. And that's the analysis I hear, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, there are 60-year-old comics that are worth $10, $5, $3, $1, you know, so it's maybe not 60, maybe 40.
Well, look at some of the bird trading cards that people have been buying on PWCC, like $50 for 130-year-old or
yeah.
I was gonna say a coin example. There's plenty of Morgan silver dollars which were minted back in the late 1800s that are worth scrap silver, whatever the silver value is.
Yeah. So the real question is, right, is the market going to become established? And is this the first kind of push into it becoming a mainstream market, as mainstream as comics, as mainstream as sports cards? And my answer is yes. I think I think our best guess is that this period has fundamentally changed this market forever. And now it is an actual established market. And before it really wasn't. No one thought about Pokemon cards was more of a weird, like a side kind of that only a few people were into. And now it's like on the level of those other types of things, not sports cards, of course, but in the same sort of level as something like comic books. That's my feeling. That's be my best guess, but nothing is for sure. Collectibles in general could tank, right? And will tank at different times. But I wouldn't expect, for example, like comic books to do really well in a period and Pokemon cards to do really badly. That's what I wouldn't expect. In fact, that it's when alternative assets do well, they'll do well together, and this will be part of that group of established things, which is great news for all of us Pokemon people. People are having an interesting discussion about that, like rarity, you know, the true collectory, you know, like rare. Do you need rarity to enjoy collecting, that type of stuff? A lot of interesting thoughts back and forth. It's a good conversation. A lot of people are going to have good opinions on it. Just make sure everyone's staying respectful. I'm seeing respectfulness, but things can get heated when we talk about like the way you should or shouldn't collect. That can be a really touchy subject.
Oh, that's definitely a heated conversation right there.
Yeah. Wading into the whole Frosted Caribou situation that I was in, and just the whole conversation about like, you know, are we the evil investors, as Rudy would say, the creepy evil basement dweller investors. Gift card partner says, what are your thoughts on the Japanese banned cards? Thoughts, guys? So cards like
Misty Steers and
Sabrina's Gaze.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not like an expert on them, but a lot of them are commons and uncommons, I believe. And I'm not a Japanese guy. I said I'm not a Japanese set guy. I have a fair bit of those at PSA right now, and I didn't try to have them.
Yeah, that's the key point.
I'll just keep it concise. That's my answer.
I think I was watching your last week or your yesterday stream, and
Yeah.
I completely agreed with what you said there. I think a lot of it, I agree with you, where a lot of it is these pack breakers trying to hype up the set to try and sell those packs for more money, to get more people to buy into those packs. I think they're cool, but the pricing on them, there's no way I'd pay that kind of pricing.
Pricing makes absolutely no sense. Yeah.
No.
Not difficult to grade, extremely easy to find. If you open a booster box of 60 packs of Japanese, you're going to find a billion of them. You're going to find so many, right? And so it's just way, way overpriced. And
Oh, yeah.
and I just saw a lot of these streams. I think it's that thing of like, you want people to be excited for every pack. And I have plenty of issues with like probably the majority. I think so much of it is so problematic from what I can tell and what I'm seeing. And it's so rare that I find one that I think is like charging like reasonable prices and even if you charge a lot, you have to be honest with your audience and speak the actual truth and have the knowledge to speak the truth. And like, they're all like, oh my God, you're going to do amazing. Like they charge someone like $600 for this pack. They pull the best card from the pack and they lose money on it. That's, and they say like, oh my God, and everyone's so excited, you're going to make a fortune. It's like, and then it comes back from PSA, it's like an 8, and they've like, it's like $150 card now, and I had this talk with Randolph, and Randolph was, said the same thing and why he stopped doing them in a lot of ways. And he started saying on the ones that he did, like, you guys are going to lose money on doing this. Do this for the experience and for the fun. And, like Dan, you can speak to this from someone who opened all the boxes, like absolutely open boxes and open packs for the fun, for the experience. Yeah. Don't let these guys hoodwink you. Don't let these guys manipulate you and trick you into thinking that first of all, they're your friend and doing you a favor. Because I see that a lot, the I'm doing you a favor. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Dan, and Nick, and I think it was something you said, Dan, when we were talking about the guy saying like, it's going to be worth 10 million, right? the Bogsies, it's like, why wouldn't you just open the packs yourself or keep the packs yourself if it was a better investment? It's like, oh, because the best way to make money right now is to be a booster box streamer. Like they're making a freaking fortune, like $1,000 an hour, on average, more than that. And it requires no gamble. There's zero risk. What I do, I've made a huge return, right? We've all made a lot of money, a lot of return from our buying and selling, but there's risk in what we're doing. What they're doing is almost zero risk. They're just selling immediately, making that margin over and over and over again. And it's amazing that it's working so well, but it is what it is. I can't, I have to be careful not to hate on like, it's great. Like if people are happy and they're not being misled, then it's a business, it's a gambling business, but it's a business and it's ethical. That's ethical. As long as you're, in my opinion, if we all have agency, and, I don't know about your guys' feeling on that. I tangented a little bit, but what do you guys feel about them?
I really don't like them. I agree with, I've heard you talk about this before, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I think it's a lot of the people who are breaking these boxes, hyping it up to the point where the people buying the packs don't know enough about Pokemon yet. They're taking the word of these box breakers saying, I'm going to make a ton of money just by buying this pack and grading these cards. I think that's what a lot of their business is, especially with the modern pack breaks. Not so much the WotC pack breaks, because WotC, it's a lot more expensive. So you obviously have to have some knowledge going into it. But with the modern stuff, I think it's a lot of people who are new to the hobby and just can't find that product at their local store or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm fine. Like we talked about kind of the morality of selling certain commons and uncommons for those high prices back late last year. And my opinion was I was just selling them for the best price on the market, and other grown adults were making their own decisions. I made no claims of this card's going to be X in Y years. So for box breakers who are just like, hey, I'm selling Vivid Voltage, it's $7 a pack. It is what, like, as long as they're not saying you're going to make a bunch of money, this is guaranteed stonks. I mean, I'm fine with it. If someone wants to pay you, Jake, $7-10 for a vivid voltage pack, there's some amount of experience there. There's some amount of community enjoyment. You can go out to the bar and spend a bunch of money on the same beer that you can drink at home for a fraction of the price.
Agreed.
It's the social aspect of it. It's the experience, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you start selling $10 vivid voltage packs and you throw up a spreadsheet that proves that it's a $15 expected value that's just completely made up, and that's where it gets like really just wrong.
Honestly, the bar comparison is a phenomenal comparison, because if you think about how much the restaurant makes, it's like a similar, it's a humongous moneymaker. And I think that this is the part that gets hidden. When you get a shot at a bar, they're paying, whatever it is for the whole bottle, and they're making the markup on each individual shot they're selling would blow your mind. It's a crazy, if you actually sit down and do the math. In this situation, I see streamers pretend that they're not making a lot of money. And I also am amazed at how many donations happen on these streams. Like there's this feeling of like that, and that worries me a little bit. It's a little bit like, thank you so much. And I mean, I do think they really like the streamer and they are appreciative of the community they build, and there's a lot of positivity going on. But there's also like this, it's strange to me, because it's like this guy's sitting there and he's making $1,000 an hour right in front of your face, like from what you're doing, and you're losing money every pack you're buying. The odds are you're losing money, and then you like tip him a bunch after. Although I guess if you really truly view it just like the bar example, it makes sense. It's that whole experience. Although I think you're tipping the bartender because they're probably not making that much, or the bartenders do make a lot.
I've seen, I've been out of the casino. I don't really gamble too much, but yeah. I've been out to a casino, friends playing $10, $25 a hand blackjack, and they'll lose and lose and lose, go to the ATM, they'll lose, and then they'll like have a hot streak at the end and be 300 up from where they were 10 minutes prior, maybe 800 down for the night. Sure. And then they'll tip their dealer $20 at the end of it. Strange things go on, and
but they're at least like a minimum wage. That's like the dealer's not making a lot of money. It's like this person in front of you is making $1,000 off of your gambling an hour, and you go and probably you wake up the next day and have like a $20 an hour job, and you're working your butt off. And it's like there's this weird disconnect that I don't get.
Yeah, it is a strange thing.
Hard to explain. Explain. And that's where my mind goes to some of those like negative, manipulative places. But that's where it could be unfair of me, and I'm jumping to conclusions. And it's people spend their money as now repeating. I'm repeating us here, but on gambling or these other sorts of things all the time, and it's fun and enjoyable. I like to go to the bar sometimes and buy a bunch of stuff and gamble too. I just 100% have that knowledge in my head that like I'm paying for the entertainment and the experience.
Yeah, and you allocate. I'm going to spend $100 tonight. I'm going to have a good time, and you exchange a certain amount of money for. I mean, you can really get into a big conversation if you dive down how many of these people are chasing the big hit and gambling more than they wanted to for the night, but that's
a whole other issue.
Yeah.
And what Nick was saying before, I really agree with just that idea that oh shoot, just lost my train of thought. Oh well, we'll see if it comes back, but it happens sometimes on these longer streams.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh well, I think the point's probably been made. Anything you guys want to add before next thing, please?
We're in a really weird place where like modern. I mean, I buy booster boxes for 80 to 85 a piece. Maybe some of these pack breakers, just to like give the counterpoint. Maybe some of these pack breakers are buying vivid voltage boxes on the secondary market for 150 to 200 and then breaking them. And maybe they're not making so much money. I don't know. Just trying to provide a counterpoint.
No. A ton. I sat down and did the math. So if you are selling it, if a booster box is going for like whatever 150, and you're selling or even like 100, and you're able to get 150 out of it, which would be, this is the way to put it. If you're buying booster boxes for like $100 and then you sell it for 150, which is like generally the margin they're making off of like a battle styles. If you actually look at how quickly they open packs, they're making $1,000 an hour if you extrapolate it out. And so that's on that. If they, on Vivid Voltage, if they had a distributor,
but I guess
imagine the amount of money, right? If they're getting them those for like $84 and they're selling them at like 200, if they're selling each booster box like $300, $350, $400 evaluation, and they're going through 20 in like an hour.
And Modern's really weird though too, because like from another perspective again is like, I'm buying that same Modern product and I'm not selling it on stream for like margins above, but I feel kind of weird because I used to buy a couple cases of every release for 80 a box, and I'd just sit on them for a while because they were never worth selling for. I couldn't compete with the guys selling them for 80 and 90 a box on eBay and make nothing. Lately, I've been selling those boxes for 200 a piece and doubling my money for doing nothing. Like, I feel kind of weird about that, but again, I'm selling it for the market price. This is a temporary thing. We're going to get beyond this. And I think once those boxes become more available again at 100 to 150 a box on eBay, I think the pack breakers will kind of go away some, but maybe not. Once people can get them at Walmart.
I think that's definitely going to happen. Once sealed product becomes more available, I think less people will go to these pack breakers.
Yeah. For me, it's that, and I'm remembering my point and off of Nick. For me, it's I believe that a lot of what I'm seeing in the activity on these chats is people who think they're going to make money. It's just my perception. I don't buy the like. I also think that there's gambling addiction issue. I also think that almost all these streamers are manipulative and pretend that they aren't making money. They make it seem like, I never hear these guys talk about how much money they're making or that this is amazing. Like, I've never heard any of them talk openly about it. It's like, it needs to be hidden, and all the hits are like way overhyped, and they're always exaggerating values of everything and exaggerating grades. And so all of that to me tells a very clear narrative and story that the box breakers are aware and are intentional about all this stuff. And now it's not black and white, and there are all sorts of, right? There's like, I started my chat of like the one, which I won't say the person's name. And then like the ones that I really like and have spent time on that I think are doing it at a much more reasonable margin. But even those guys are still making like that $1,000, 500 an hour. So it's still an unbelievable rainmaker money situation. And yeah, I think it's just a PSA to keep saying it for people, and hopefully this stuff trickles out there, and then figure out what to do about it. You can certainly buy from them. That's, we're not saying don't buy from them if you want to buy from them.
Yeah,
I never understood either why or how it became acceptable for these people to say, you're keeping the hits only, I keep everything else.
Yeah.
That to me, that I can't.
Oh, it's crazy. They sell everything. They sell the Coke.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then also, like, I think what will be a really good test is now that the market is going down and the sentiment is shifting, and particularly we're going to see Modern like crash a lot of the prices. I think we haven't talked about it tonight. We're probably all in agreement, I would imagine, on that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Based on our supply fundamentals that we think about on vintage going down, we can apply the same thing, just 10x it for certain Modern things. Mm-hmm. When that happens, it's going to be fascinating to see if people are still buying on these streams, because I think they're going to stop, because I think that they're going to be like, this isn't an investment anymore. And they weren't doing it for they were doing it because it was really fun, but the investment piece was key.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When that falls out of the wayside, they can't just like grade these cards and make money or make their money back. I wonder what happens. So we'll have to see, though. Be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be a good test, I think, to really get to the motives of what's driving a lot of this activity. Because if it isn't that, then it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't affect it. That should be just as popular. And it should just be what you were saying, which is just the supply. It's just a supply issue, and more supply just needs to get into Walmart, and then they won't do it. That type
exactly.
Of thing. Yeah. And it's probably both. Probably both things. All righty. So we could probably do like one or two more questions. I think we should probably try to stop at 12, but we should do this again, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, no,
this
this
has
is a lot
been a
of
lot
fun.
of fun.
So you guys are always welcome to come on. All right.
Awesome.
And I'm sure people are really going to like this and get a lot of value from it. It's always great having multiple people, I think. Anything you see that feels like some good questions to wrap up on. Here is which is probably a pretty decent question. Do you guys think PSA will return everything slowly, or do you think they will hold and then dump everything at once?
I think they're gonna return it as they grade it. I don't think they're thinking about the market, manipulating the market like that. I have seen that before, though. That's not the only time that question's come up. On different
putting the manipulation aside, what do you think about do you think it will come back in big chunks? Do you think it's going to be slow over time and be absorbed? What do you think, Nick?
Oh, I think it's definitely going to I think it's going to get slower as we go along. So like right now we're seeing cards come back that were sent off in June or July of last year. So as they continue to get into August, September, October, I think the process is just going to get bogged down even more, because that's kind of when more and more people were sending cards off. So
yeah.
I do think the return process is going to slow way down as we get into like the fall months of last year.
Yeah, and I think it'll vary. I mean, any kind of universal answer is too broad to really fit everything. So
yeah.
There'll be certain cards. I forget who was even talking about it, but I remember hearing that the population for one card, like a full art Bianca or something from one of the black and white sets,
sure,
like 70 cards were added to the pop in one day, when
and those cards had like nothing before.
When less than 70 had been graded prior. So for certain cards on certain days, there will be an absolute dam breaks like surge.
Yeah.
But and going back to some of the commons and uncommons, I myself have a couple submissions out where there might be 50 mint jungle Pikachus, or probably base Charmander's the worst offender. Mm-hmm. That one at least has a decently high pop, so like it's not all going to be at once. But as far as PSA intentionally doing anything like that, there was a recent article where they're doing 20 to 25,000 cards per day. They're grading. They're getting rid of those as fast as they can. They're not intentionally like buying an extra warehouse space to they don't have the time to think about anything like that.
Yeah.
But some days, those 25,000 cards that get pushed out, there might be 1,000 of one Pokemon card. Who knows? Some days it might not be any Pokemon. So there's going to be like mini waves and surges throughout.
People are not nearly worried enough. A lot of people. And there are certain people and there's market that people are far too worried about, in my opinion. And there are certain cards in certain areas that people they don't even have a conception of how many cards are going to hit the market at once and what that's going to do to that part of the market. There are going to be cards and there are going to be things I predict that don't sell. You're not going to be able to sell them. You're going to see listings on eBay of one person trying to sell 20 of the same card. You're going to see things that you have never seen in Pokemon. You've never seen someone selling 20 of the same PSA card listing, right?
I saw an interesting thing on Burbank actually the other day. I don't know if you saw it, Nick, but I think it was 64
Reds Pikachu.
64 sequential all PSA 10 Reds Pikachus.
I did see that, yeah.
In that card, I think there's already thousands graded. So like in the grand scheme of things, like that is a card. It's almost like a modern day Ancient Mew. I think cards like that with such good art, and they almost transcend like rarity, because they're not rare at all, but they still achieve a decent price because they're so popular. But that was funny to see. It's not the first time I've seen that, and it's not the last time you're gonna see that.
The next one's gonna be the Charizard illustrator, the Japanese.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! There are so many of those.
I didn't even go heavy into that, and I probably have 100 out between
Yeah.
Yep.
There are people with thousands.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. So it's there are going to be huge chunks. There are certain people who are greatly underestimating how big certain chunks are going to be, where you're going to see cards that just like all of a sudden like have a few hundred that had like none or almost none, or 1,000 in like the course of a week. Like there's going to be moments, because there are people sending. First of all, we have a lot more people trying to make money than ever before. And so in these types of orders, you're going to have a lot more of like non-collector orders, where it's like a bunch of like it's a bunch of cards that are like all different from all different generations. You're going to have a lot of orders that have like 500 of one card or 500 of like 4 cards that with the pure intention of flipping those, of selling those at margin. And you're going to have a lot of people who did that. How many, I'm not sure, but more than ever before, for sure. And these waifu cards were clearly bought out, right? I mean, there were buyout groups, there were buyout discords after like TBJ's videos on them, targeting the waifu full art cards, all the way back. And so we're going to see there are people who sent out 100, 150 of one single card when there were only like 35 complete upgrades. So this is why how much I talk about how right now, vintage, like jungle fossil rocket, it's some of the easiest stuff to get in the hobby. It's easier to get than it is to get the modern on a lot of these cards. And yet that's not going to maintain. It's going to radically shift. And when that does, psychologically, the market is going to shift and correct to that. How big of a correction, we don't know. But I just try to keep saying and hoping that a new person watches the video who we might be able to help kind of think more critically. But there are these echo chamber communities out there that they're just hyping each other up for the past few months. Scary stuff. So one thing I think is interesting is, are there modern cards? Are there modern set cards that you would be buying right now to invest in that you think have a good chance of at least sustaining value or only dropping like 20-30%? Because I think that those are, because the vintage is at risk for the same sort of thing, 20-30% more retrace, right? Are there cards in modern that are set cards, promos that are great modern promos and they're, and they're modern trophies, putting those aside, modern set cards, anything out there that you feel like is a potential buy or something that you're not as concerned about or worried about?
For me, no. and I don't buy graded cards, especially modern. Like I buy very few graded vintage cards. If I want a card, especially modern, I'll buy 20 of it and grade them all, and then keep 1 or 2 that I want, because the margin is just there. And I've occasionally made plays for like, I remember the Hidden Fates Charizard. It went kind of crazy, and then it tanked, and I don't even know what it's doing now, but like a PSA 10 SV49.
Look it up.
I picked up a couple of them. I remember a year ago, maybe, when I felt that they like retraced too low, and I picked up a couple for around $1,000, and then I just flipped them for like 1,500 a month or 2 later. I occasionally make plays like that, but I try not to, because it's just so hard to guess.
I'm the same way. It has to be like really obvious for me to go in on a play like that, a shorter term play. Sorry, Nick, what were you saying?
I'm the same way. I don't do too much with modern. If I do anything, it's keeping just cards that I actually enjoy. But in terms of investing, I'd rather use that money towards WotC.
It looks like 1,200 for the Hidden Fates PSA 10.
So that's interesting, because I think that's my buy point was like, I don't even remember where they peaked at, over 2,000, I think. And then they dropped down to 1,000. I picked up a couple, sold them for around 1,500, if I'm remembering right, even. But
so 10 of them sold in this PWCC auction. 10 PSA 10s.
And it's really interesting. Just this, like the pop of that is over 1,000, I think, right? It really, really high. It's just interesting to see, like, that can get you so many different PSA 10 WotC cards. And I mean, to me, I really harp against, like, to your point, I harp against the Jungle, Eevee, and Pikachu, but I'd rather have 3 or 4 Eevees than some of these modern cards. I mean, I do like that card a lot, but I don't know.
Yeah, Hidden Fates is this interesting beast of, like, you know, is this going, first of all, are we in a smaller demand period now than we're going to be in 5 to 10 years is the first big question. If you think the demand is going to be bigger in 10 years, because although we had this weird, like, you know, pandemic event and like, and the stimulus checks, and it's like, do you think like that's what caused a lot of this, and we're going to artificially, you know, come down a lot, and the demand in 5 to 10 years is probably going to look like similar-ish to what it was at the height here? Like, or do you think that we're sort of, using comics, we're sort of in more of like a middle age, you know, we're in a high point of the middle age of comics, and we actually haven't seen anything yet because Pokemon is so big that in 5 to 10 years, we're really going to see a bubble, and we're really going to see, you know, like so much product, like way more product than now. And when we look back, Hidden Fates actually didn't have that much product, and it goes down as one of the most historic sets of all time. But like, that's a lot of ants. Like, that's a lot of risk. That's a lot of questions. That's a lot of like, who knows? What I do know is there ain't going to be that many more Jungle Clefables, you know, in PSA 10 first edition. And I do know that that's one of the original 151 first, you know, Pokemon, and one of the first like 32 holos ever in Pokemon English. So,
and it sounds like you got that for roughly 2 PSA 10 SV49s, right?
Yeah, a little bit less, right? Slightly less than 2 of those. And there are only 62 in the world after all this time. And to get another one, the cost of opening up a Jungle First Edition box versus the cost of opening up Hidden Fates packs, right? The amount of hidden is the amount of Jungle. You can go on and on. It just means you have to, first of all, like Charizard or believe in Charizard so much more. And you have to believe in Hidden Fates so much more. And you can argue that, right? You can make a demand argument that, like, in the future, kids aren't going to want these original first edition cards. They're going to want Hidden Fates. Like, Hidden Fates is going to be more popular than base set, you know, than Jungle and Fossil. That is not what happened in comics. Like, that is not what happened in these other things. What happened is that, to go to that rarity piece, people loved when kids become adults. And I was arguing this with someone the other night. When kids become adults, they're probably going to want the stuff they never had, the stuff that from our generation. They're probably not going to want the stuff from their generation, because the stuff from their generation is going to be a lot easier to get. It's going to be mass produced. And if they want it, they're going to be able to get it, because there isn't going to be enough of them. There's going to be so many adults are hoarding the product that there's going to be enough for the amount of kids that are collecting now, you know, or opening now to have. Whereas there is not nearly enough of that original WotC, you know, in PSA 10, those high grades, for all of the adults who grew up with that and want that, and for all the new generations that are going to want it. I think that's a much better bet, but it is all speculation at the end of the day. But that's where I would put my money. What do you guys think, to kind of summarize all of that? It sounds like we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
I need to get someone on here who is like all about that, the modern game, and thinks that that's where it's at, and think we're old fogies and we don't know what we're talking about.
It really is interesting though, like, in spite of the high pops, like, just to see that card. I mean, it does speak to the current demand, and the demand today is higher on that card in some respects. Like, even though the price is only half, there's way more of them, and it's still maintaining that price. And like, if you look at how many 10 tonight, right? And presumably there was one Clefable. It's just a really interesting thing to me. You put the 2 options in front of me. I know which one I'm taking.
Yeah.
But it's really the dynamics and pricing, like modern versus vintage, is just really interesting.
Yes, it is. It is very interesting. I wanted to quickly look up the pop changes on that card. I just thought it'd be interesting on the Charizard. Let's see. I'll just look at it here. I'm just looking up the Shining Charizard from Hidden Fates to see like how quickly it's being graded right now. Let's see. So we're at 2,415 now in the pop. And in terms of like the speed, let's see. In the last 2 weeks, they've graded 102 more. PSA 10s.
Yeah, that might be.
You know, we might get 10 Merkle Fables or 60 Merkle Fables in 40 years.
And that might be 10,000 in 2 years. I mean, who knows?
I think we know. I mean, I think I think it's a fairly safe bet that this will be 10,000 in probably 8 months.
I
mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
I mean, if we think about how many have actually, I mean, unless people are really expressing them, which is possible that people are largely expressing them, like most of the product wasn't open. I mean, people are still getting back stuff in May before any of this, before any of these people even came into the hobby. And people have been like nonstop cracking this all day, all year, sending it in. So I just like to think it's already at 2,500 roughly. It wouldn't be crazy to say 25,000. Like it wouldn't be crazy to say that it's only 10%, and it wouldn't be crazy to say it's even more. You know, and then it goes to like Pokemon's actually printing a lot of product, and it's just that there are so many people breaking them to send them into grade, which goes back to the earlier points we talked about how, you know, there's this idea of like I should open packs and invest and then grade it and I'll make money, and like how many people out there like don't understand that it doesn't, it's all just automatic. Like you have to put in some thought, and there's some demand and supply fundamentals that you may not be aware of, but crazy stuff. So I think we should probably end for tonight. Thank you all so much in the chat for hanging out with us this whole time. Those who did, please make sure to check out both these guys' channels. Do you guys have any kind of last minute thoughts? And we'll definitely do this again and hopefully in the future and have plenty more time to talk.
Just thanks for having us on. It was a lot of fun. Thanks everyone for joining us. I had a really great time.
Yeah, no, same here. I had a lot of fun. Always enjoy talking Pokemon. It's always a good time. Much better than talking to yourself in front of a camera. So yeah, anytime you want us to have us on again, I'd definitely be interested.
Yeah,
I want to do. If you have any suggestions, or if any that has any suggestions of some people who really do talk about like fundamentals and could have like a bit of a sophisticated conversation around it, who is like very pro or like against some of the stuff we're talking about, what would be really fun is like having like a round table of like different opinions one night. I can invite you guys on, can invite some of those guys on. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram if you have an opinion and a channel, and I can, you know, watch your channel, watch some of your reviews and bring you on. Cause I do think that that type of content is really valuable. And I do think this is really valuable to hear like 3 seasoned guys have the same opinion and explain it, hopefully helps it sink in. But I also think having a debate where people are bringing up the best points on both sides, you know, is a great way to do it. So thank you guys again. Thank you to the audience, and we will see you all again soon.
Yeah. Have a great night.
All right. Just give me a second to stop the recording over here.